Good morning. Today is Wednesday, May 7th. It is 9:36. This is the Budget and Public Employees Committee. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanier. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderman Devoti.
Present.
Chair Aldridge.
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanier. Alderwoman Velasquez. We have 3 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And with that, we will move to approval of the minutes. We do not have any today. And the 4th item on the agenda will be board bills for review. Again, we will be reviewing board bill number 1, which is the city's budget. Today, we will hear from the building division, followed by excise. There will be a small break in between, and then we will hear from the circuit attorney's office. So with that, we'll dive right on in, and we have our building commissioner here and deputy commissioner here today to present on the building division. So when you all are ready, please come on up, state your name for the record, and then you can proceed with your presentation.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ed Ware.
Commissioner, could you make sure the mic is on? It's just a button right there at the top. Yes, sir.
How about now? All good?
All good.
All righty. Good morning once again. My name is Ed Ware. I'm the building commissioner for the city of St. Louis.
Dylan Mosier, Deputy Commissioner.
If you could say it into the mic, Mr. Dillon.
Sure. Dylan Mosier, Deputy Commissioner of Buildings.
Thank you. Thank you. Whenever you're ready, you can proceed, Commissioner.
All righty. Are we ready for the slide presentation that we sent out?
Do you have the slide presentation, Madam Clerk? All right, one moment. We're getting it loaded on up for you, Commissioner.
Or if need be, I can just,
No, she's,
here we go.
and then also for the members on the committee, this presentation is also in your Google Drive if you want to follow along on your personal device. You may proceed, Commissioner.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. So the building division on slide 2, what you'll see is I'll go through our core mission first. The building division is responsible for ensuring the residents and businesses comply with all the city's building code and other related regulations. We do so to foster a safe and healthy environment for all the people that live, work, and visit to the city of St. Louis. And by doing so, we hope this encourages the attraction of new businesses and also the retention of existing ones. The building division services include, but we certainly are not limited to, issuing building permits, issuing occupancy permits, conducting various code enforcement inspections, demolishing vacant, dilapidated buildings, enforcing the zoning regulations, and the division also operates the housing conservation program that is dedicated to preserve the housing stock throughout the area. The building division is broken down to 14 unique sections. We've evolved over the years, and we're a very complex department at this time. We have the inspections division, the trades division, the plan exam division, the permitting department, zoning department, the Office of Building Performance. We now are operating a short-term rental group unit through the new legislation that is on temporary hold based on a court order. Of course, the environmental courts, all the lead abatement activities, all the board up activities, and Office of the Building Commissioner, myself, and Mr. Dillon and our staff, all the accounting and payroll, all the healthy homes repair programs, all the fire safety programs. And I probably should add that it's becoming more and more apparent that this demolition section is getting more and more busy. So it's almost 15 unique sections inside the department. The building division currently has about 170 active employees. We requested recently a budget increase to 231. We had a return budget proposed of 212. Currently, with the staff we have, the assignments for the core of the building division, which is inspection personnel, is I have 4 field managers who oversee the inspectors and the supervisors. The department manager who oversees everything was my previous position. That is still vacant at this time. So I'm kind of doing double duty right now. But I hope to have that filled sometime this year. It's a very important position. Our fire safety unit is down to 1 group now. We used to have 2. And it is comprised of 1 supervisor and 5 fire safety inspectors who tried to evenly divide up all the activities throughout the 14 wards. The commercial construction unit, which handles everything that exceeds $5 million in cost and all the complicated issues, currently has 1 supervisor and 5 inspectors throughout the city. Our Healthy Homes team currently have 1 supervisor and only 3 inspectors assigned throughout the city. I have 15 trade inspectors that are supervised by 3 people. They are all specialized in their particular area: electrical, plumbing, and mechanical. My new short-term rental program is I have 1 program manager overseeing 1 supervisor and just 3 inspectors. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. We haven't really got into the program as of yet. So we may be able to handle it, and if not, next year there'll be talks about increasing this manpower. So the overall code enforcement for all 14 wards assigned currently to 11 field supervisors. They currently divide up and oversee 43 code enforcement inspectors. Our plan exam section, which unfortunately when I first came in a little over 12 months ago, was pretty much devastated. We were down to just 1 plan examiner, and it created a undue hardship on a lot of the citizens coming down looking for permits and plan exam. So we're in a rebuilding phase on that. We have been doing so for the last 12 months. And with another interview coming up on the 12th of next week of a civil engineer, I may be getting close to having a full staff once again in the plan exam section. I've rehired our chief plan examiner and all the other positions. Zoning section also is going through a rebuilding phase, but I think we're on schedule to get that finally fully staffed soon. I might want to pause on this right now and talk about some of the difficulties within the department that we have as far as retention of our employees so they don't leave, and also hiring employees, trying to hire replacements. Just in the short past 12 months that I have been up there, we've lost 12 inspectors. 1 was based on medical retirement. 1 was based on a untimely death. And the rest all left to go into, well, 2 went to Houston to work in this type of business, and someone in the private industry. The most recent one was hired by the city of Webster Groves. So he left and now he works for them. They are pulled away by money. It is true. But we're not the only department in city government that fights with this. A lot of times, once we go through the training of all these people and they reach a certain level of expertise, other communities snatch them up. So it's just something we have to struggle with. So I'll move on from there. That was just a quick comment. So generally, the funding from fiscal year 26 and the fiscal year budget proposal is pretty close. You can see on the screen, there is very little deviation from the request and the proposed, a little bit on the special fund. I must say that when we got this back, we wrote question marks, the deputy and I, on the one where you see special fund, and that is C6216. That is that vacant building initiative fund 2. That's that second fund. We do have it funded with $145,000. Hopefully that will take care of that issue. Critical things to talk about, excuse me, inside the building division.
Commissioner?
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. Before we continue on, if we can go back one slide, I do.
Absolutely, sir.
Just for, so the people watching and some of my colleagues here, newer folks, can you just go into depth a little bit more of what, you said healthy homes, the zonings, all these positions, a little bit more of what they do.
Well, and I'll backtrack. I'm sorry. Healthy Homes is a repair program.
I'm still working on.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Healthy Homes is a repair program that is somewhat administered and works in coordination with CDA. And they go out and make repairs on homes that of constituents that have a certain income level that is low, and they try to bring these things up to code compliant. The short-term rental program, I think, is self-explanatory. We're trying to regulate the Airbnb and the short-term rental activity in the area. We're getting feedback from people in the industry that there may be as many as 2,000 unlicensed Airbnbs throughout the area. So we are trying to get control of that, regulate that as much as we can. As I said, there was a temporary restraining order issued by a judge. Most recently, this was extended for an additional 15 days. There's a little bit of back and forth discussions going on if the program needs to be somewhat tweaked to move forward. We're waiting for any kind of guidance from the city attorneys and through the judge that's overseeing this now. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, you talked about healthy homes, and we talked about the short-term rental as far as explaining. The Fire Safety Unit is working in conjunction with the Fire Marshal's Office. The Fire Safety Code, the 2018 Fire Code, has so many chapters throughout the Fire Code assigned to the Fire Department for enforcement, and the remaining chapters within the Fire Code are assigned to the Fire Safety Unit inside the Building Division for enforcement. So that is a shared responsibility between both the Building Division and the St. Louis Fire Department. Let's see, I don't know, do we need to discuss, does anybody like to discuss the commercial high-rise section at all? I will gladly get into that.
Could you just also talk about the plan exam section that has been in rebuild?
Yes,
like what is
the plan exam section, as I said when we first came in, we only had one plan, so the senior plan exam. So for a while, we hired a former plan examiner to come in and work part-time, just to kind of fill in the open gaps until we went through the interview and hiring process to get this back up to full staff. I do have Mr. Tim Claus is now the chief plan examiner. He's very well respected regionally. I have now promoted Ms. Sansan Smith to be not only the senior plan examiner, but the code development specialist moving forward for the building division for any future code development activities that may happen. We have hired another individual most recently as a plan examiner. He's an architectural student, and we're going to train him. And on the 12th, I have an additional individual who is a civil engineer, and we are pretty confident that we'll be able to hire him. So at that time, I'll have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 there. But I must say, speaking of plan exam section, I must say that on the returned information that we got from the budget department, it appeared to be on the TO that I lost one of my plan examiners. I've always had 4 senior plan examiners. We've been operating at that level for as many years as I've been here, and as you probably know by my looks, I've been here for a while. So I really need to get that additional plan examiner back in the TO. It is just a huge necessity for the city, for the citizens, for the city, for all the development that we hope will continue. So that would be the plan exam section. The zoning section also has went through a rebuilding phase. We've recently hired a young lady who is an architectural student, and she lives in Webster Groves. She's a very intelligent young woman, and she seems to be a good fit, and she loves what she's doing. So I've got our zoning administrator in place now. We have our zoning specialist 3 category in place now. Pardon me? Community Development Planner 3 is the correct title, I'm sorry. And I have this young lady, and we're looking at some other people. So we hope to be full staff. Our goal is to rebuild, and we've been rebuilding for the last 12 months. And we've made some progress in some areas, and I just I've failed in other areas to get this back up to fully staffed. So, but it's a work in progress, and we're not quitting, and we keep fighting the good fight.
Gotcha. I appreciate it. I just wanted to, like I said, for folks just watching, and also some of our members on the committee knew of just going into details of what maybe those rows do, but
Absolutely.
if we want to, we can go back to the.
I think I may make an additional comment that the building division is actively looking at moving forward and getting digital plan review. St. Louis County has that right now. They particularly use a group called Acela. So in the future, when we get that new programming in, that will also expedite all of the plan review process. Okay. And it'll make the city of St. Louis more efficient in all of the plan review. And zoning, by the way.
And I think the last slide before I interrupted you, I'm sorry, it was now one of the critical items not approved by the budget.
Yes, sir. I know with the new Oracle system that we're supposed to, departments theoretically.
Madam Clerk, could we go to the last slide? Okay. Thank you.
I would really love to have another payroll specialist like to have, but I know that theoretically the Oracle system is supposed to kind of fill in for that. But I'm having difficulties having just one person as far as this individual, if they want to take off, or if they, unfortunately have a medical situation or something like that. We went through a terrible situation with having one individual in accounting. That was David Thackwell. When he died suddenly, it just, everything collapsed. So a lot of times when you have just one person doing something, it creates a pinch point, a bottleneck. and we don't have anybody to jump in and fill in. Pardon me. The senior plan examiner, we talked about that a moment ago. I really need that back. I would really like to talk about the utility workers, the board up people. We did request 9. That was cut down to 4. I've talked to Arnold Mitchell in the board up section. Pardon me. I need water. And he said he cannot operate with no less than 5. It's his minimum. So I have to have 5 at a minimum to keep the board up crew operational. Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, sir.
Oh.
Excuse me for a moment. Thank you. The another reduction, and it's not on here, but I'd like to bring it up, is we originally requested 22 slots in the TO for Building Inspector 2, trying to fill these positions and expand it. We were allowed 18. I would really like to get as close to 22 as I can because of all these new programs and everything else going on. It's not on here, but it is on my radar. I apologize for not putting it on this sheet for you to review. The last thing, and we're having a little bit of confusion over this, we have a contractual obligation, LRA, to operate and help them with Prop NS. So we submitted in the budget proposal to fill those slots, the dollar amount, I believe it was 4 inspectors and 1 supervisor. And it came back as all of it being deleted through the budget review process. Now, the funding for this is out of 1210. I don't really have 1210 in my department budget per se. I know that this was funded by let's see, what the hell? I think it was a bond issue originally. So I have to track this funding that has some ties to LRA and to the building division so we can fulfill our obligation to help and assist in the Prop NS. So I am so sorry I don't have an answer to that right now, but we are feverishly working on it. So my apologies to this board. And that's where we are. Now, I guess most recently, if I could talk about the demolition money a little bit, if it's okay. The previous fiscal year in the demolition money, it did not cover some new legislation that came through the board at that time. And it was an ordinance 71742, and the chief sponsor of the ordinance was the current mayor, Mayor Spencer. And it covered for, it amended section 119.3 of the code under the condemnation section. And it gave the building division responsibility on any building that exceeds 500,000 square feet to use either steel barriers and/or hire security companies. Well, we didn't really have the funding for that at that time during that fiscal year, and we were confronted with the situation down at the railway exchange, as we all know. They were constantly in there stealing, scrapping. During one call for a body, fire department went in, they lost a cadaver dog, which are very expensive to train. So we were forced to hire a security company. It was an emergency situation. That security company, that 2-man company, did a great job and stopped all of the break-ins. The cost of the building division at that time was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $65,000 a month. And we had to, legally it was, move it out of the unsafe buildings section of the demolition fund and pay for this in order to keep this activity from getting any worse. I will say that now, this year, on this fiscal year, we have put in a budget request for, and we were allowed to have this additional money for this type of activity for the upcoming fiscal year if it is indeed needed once again. That is under 1121 of my budget. It's going to be $744,000. I hope I don't have to use it. I hope I don't have to go through this again. So it is, and I believe, let's see, it's 562003 under security. So we have adjusted, we have made adjustments for this type of activity, and we think it's a good piece of legislation. I think everybody was involved in the board, but we hope we don't have to use it. We hope it goes back to general revenue at the end of the year. Also, not being able to look into the future, sometimes we seem to be reluctant to demo a lot of buildings that are requested by various aldermen. We try to prioritize it as much as we can. And currently, towards the end of this fiscal year, I did a dollar check on how much money we had. And the reason we try to keep some of it there is because over the weekend we just had a large warehouse complex fire down on 7th, O'Fallon, 6th. And I'm going to have to take it down. And my rough bids right now are probably $1.5 million to take these down. So now, to make it more complex, when the fire department was out there a day or two ago spraying at hotspots, the homeless were inside yelling at them to stop spraying because it's knocking down bricks because they still live in there. So we got to get them out. So it's a very touchy, complex situation. So when that expenditure is done and we take it down, we make it safe for the community that's over there. I can't remember that little apartment community. Fallon, is it?
Cochran.
Cochran,
yes.
Yeah. Make it safe for them. We're worried about kids. We're worried about any citizen being hurt. So I have my demolition people moving quickly on that because it's my understanding on today's news we had another partial collapse. So I have to move quick. I have to move fast on that. We want to get it down. We want to get it safe. We want to get it cleaned up. The hope is, fingers crossed, once the demolition contractor shows up with all the equipment on the staging area, it will encourage the homeless population inside the buildings to know that they have to. We're trying not to get PD or fire department with cadaver dogs or anybody to go inside because it is such a dangerous structure that's left there. It's bad. We don't want anybody hurt. So it's another complex issue that the building division is dealing with and has been dealing with for the past few days. So once again, not being able to look forward, sometimes it looks like we're reluctant to comply with a lot of the demolition requests from various aldermen. We're not, and we want to take it down, but we're trying to use the funds wisely as best as we can. We take down the most dangerous we can throughout the wards. And sometimes we'll ask an elected official, could you please prioritize somewhat the ones in your area that you want down, and then we'll start working on that. Ms. Keys did that for us most recently, so that's kind of one of the new approaches we're trying to take on this. So that's about demolition. Well, I hope I was clear on my presentation. I hope I didn't bore everybody. We have budgeted overall about 75 inspectors, but as I said, I I have very few right now. I'm still going through. Had a new inspector start today. I met him. I was very happy to meet him. So we keep fighting the good fight as far as hiring goes.
I gotcha. Thank you, Commissioner. I have two quick questions before I go in to my colleagues. I do appreciate, you talking about that building, and that's the Vest Bottle District.
Yes.
And making sure, I think the way that you guys go about it, especially knowing that unhoused people are in there, is, very intentional. And I've worked with you on some other buildings. I know, we've had some issues with unhoused in there that you and your team, before just going in, knocking it down, try to make sure that the people that are in there are safely removed and not detained. So good to know that the building's coming down. Some folks have reached out, that is in the 14th, about that building. That's been a problematic building for a while. Another problematic Paul McKee property. Like problem and Paul McKee rhymes together.
It seems to, doesn't it?
It seems to be.
Yeah.
Quick question on the demo. I know that we have funds or receive funds, I believe, from the state to also do demo. Do you guys work hand in hand to use those demo funds first before maybe tapping into
I think a lot of that, and I'm speaking not clearly on the subject right now, and I apologize, and I can get back detailed information if you wish to for the board members, but I think a lot of that we use in conjunction with LRA and a lot of their stuff. We are using it any way we can to take down buildings. That's our primary goal, of course. I apologize for not being clear on that answer, but
yeah, we could talk about that later. I know I've received some calls from the people who sit on that, who advocated for that money, making sure that the city spend it, because we haven't been spending.
Oh, absolutely.
And the state usually don't give St. Louis a lot of money, but they gave us a lot of money for demo to make sure that that is spent down. But we could talk about that
absolutely
at another time. And then one other quick question before I go to my colleagues. I noticed that the position for the Prop NS, like you say, was removed, and you have to kind of figure that out through bond and all that. What is kind of your timeline? Because I think that's going to be a critical position. Many of them are critical, but to have it completely gone out.
As far as replacing those slots, sir?
Yeah, trying to get that position.
As soon as I had an individual in my a little before I came down here, I sent him down to our accounting person, I'm so sorry. And I told him to look through the system to see what is the 1210 account. I have to locate that account, locate whose responsibility for that account. That account is what's funding the building division employees to work with and for LRA for the Prop NS. So I'm actively looking into that right now. Both Deputy Director Mosier and I are actually, we're working on that this morning. So
okay.
Once again, I will get that information to you, Mr. Chairman, as soon as we get it.
Okay, I appreciate it.
It's something we have to fix that. We have to fix it.
Absolutely. I know there's some pending legislation to try to work on Prop NS, and I think that role that has always existed is going to be critical to update that legislation. But with that, I'll move on to my colleagues. Alderwoman Sanye.
Good morning.
Good morning, Alderwoman. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, ma'am.
I don't have a favorite department at all, but I do know that the building division is actually one of the most used and requested and needed departments, and also one of the most revenue generating departments for the city of St. Louis. So thank you for your work. I also really like in the presentation that you got right to the nitty gritty of here's what we requested and here's what didn't happen. So I just kind of want to start my questioning along those positions, starting with the senior planners. Am I understanding right that you were budgeted for 4 in the previous year, but you had 1 on staff, and this year is that?
Yeah, let me find that location on the PO. Last year we had 1 because the department was, I'm sorry. Yeah, last year there was 1, and that was the only individual trying to do the whole plan exam. Normally throughout many years, there's always been 4 senior plan examiners and 1 chief plan examiner who oversees everybody. And that's why we're trying to get back to a normal level. Some months ago, yeah, and it was embarrassing, I would go out in the hallway and citizens would be sitting lined up down the hallway, waiting just to see 1 plan examiner. And they were angry, and I would talk to them, I'd tell them I'm sorry, and that this is just a transition period we're going through, and the other people left. So I really, really, really got to get back to a normal staff for the citizens and for the developers, and I need 4 senior plan examiners.
And how would you said that do you think that the only having 1 was due to transitioning in the department?
Well, we only had 1 for that fiscal year because the other ones, well, let's see, Ralph passed away, and Terry retired, Ron retired, and Lyle retired. So they all just left. So that left 1. So that's the one that's reflected on here.
But it wasn't an issue with the pay. It was really that some of those folks aged out or passed away.
They phased out. Pay is always an issue with design professionals. We have some difficulty in trying to attract design professionals to come down and work in this because they make considerable more amount of money in the private industry. So I can't say pay is not an issue, but it's something we have to always deal with. We try to encourage them on the the working environment here is a little bit less stressful, hopefully, than private industry, and that all of the benefits that the city offers might be attractive to them.
If I may, I mean, the pay wasn't necessarily the top line reason for the retirements. And
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself to the public?
apologies,
Name?
Deputy Building Commissioner Dylan Mosier, and sorry, Ed, to butt in, but the retirement wasn't really necessarily due to pay. It was kind of an odd anomaly from my perspective to see so many people just reach that retirement age all at the same time. But the pay is massively an issue when it comes to trying to even get someone to throw their hat in and to apply. I mean, it's very hard for us to compete with the private industry. So I just wanted to kind of hit the nail on the head precisely on the pay difficulty.
In the private industry, do you have an idea of what their salary typically is?
I don't. I mean, at least beyond anecdotally, I don't.
I could shoot a rough ballpark figure from what I have been researching, that it is about 100,000 a year. Some of them make quite a bit more. Some of these people, they top out way below that, even if, and I must say the Department of Personnel has been gracious lately about some of the people that we did hire. They saw the base pay and they said, well, we can't do this. And then we requested a additional raise on their base entry level. And they were gracious enough to agree to that. So that brought them in.
So where does the city start them at?
Alderwoman, I don't know, to be honest with you. I am so sorry I don't have a lot of that data, but I will.
I mean, I have a little estimate. I'm not sure I took what you requested in your, basically in the budget process for the 4 positions and did an estimate. But yeah, for you to change, you do have to go through personnel in order to change the pay criteria, right? You can't, that's not a part of your budgeting process. You have to go through HR and change the pay scale.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I do. Not only for that, I'm having the same difficulty hiring a plumbing inspector. These people have to come in with some journeyman background and some are drain layers and so forth like that. And I can't get anybody to come in at the starting salary of about 49,000. They all want, at least 60 or something like that. I'm even exploring whether I can talk to the Department of Personnel. Can I hire part-time plumbing inspectors? Will you allow me to do that? I don't have a avenue for that right now. So I can't even get a plumbing inspector. right now in my trade section, I'm down 2 plumbing inspectors, I'm down 1 electrical inspector, I'm down another mechanical inspector, and those are just my trade sections. And when I factor in my difficulty within the building code enforcement people, it creates a very unique, troublesome issue for the building division.
Yeah.
And it's something that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it's not really my say, it's totally your say as the department head, but I wonder, I think this year, obviously, we're going to have budget conversations. I'm very supportive of, some of these staffing needs, but I do, wonder if it might be worthwhile if you're able to get more senior planning examiners this year, but you're not able to get 4, if it'll be worth you looking at maybe eliminating 1 and adding the money from that 1 to the other 3. I know, like, I've tried to, for me, it's the utility workers. I know that those are the folks who are over the boarding up process in the city of St. Louis, and I know how many eyes send your way and how many constituents lift me up. So I'm always amazed that you guys were able to even operate and keep up and respond the way you do, given that you had so few, in my opinion, compared to the need in the city. But a lot of times when I would send it to folks, I would be the same kind of, it would be a huge pay cut for them to come here. So that's not our conversation to have. I think that's really you and Paul Payne and E&A to kind of talk about. But I think, especially after this budget year, taking a look and seeing whatever we're able to advocate for you to get back, if you're able to not still attract new folks, taking a look at potentially cutting down, even if it's just 1, because that might allow you to add 10, 15,000 to another position and make it a bit more competitive.
Well, we'll explore that. We are actually exploring, Mosier and I were talking about, if need be, to cut a position of the Randy Morning's old position, the executive assistant 2 position, cut that, and then try to readjust and transfer funds or openings over to a more needed area, and that would be, of course, senior plan examiner. So we are kind of trying to figure out, I'm so sorry, I'm trying to figure out all these pieces of a puzzle.
Yeah.
Dylan Mosier, Deputy Commissioner again. To kind of answer your question or speak a little more to what you're talking about, maybe reducing staff and then bumping pay. We have made I think the technical term is general recruitment rate increase. We petitioned the Director of Personnel probably approximately a year and a half ago to up the base pay for senior plan examiner to just under $65,000. My guess is that currently it's somewhere in the ballpark of $55,000, just to say, just to answer the question of what are we currently, asking people to apply for these jobs and get paid. The request that we made, the general recruitment rate to bump that up to just under $65,000, it was denied at the time. It's hard needle to thread because you ask for how many positions you want, like right now at budget time, but then, simultaneously you're trying to make that request. They're kind of 2 different requests, but we're open to trying to do it again for sure to just bump what we can pay these folks.
Thank you. My next question, I know I have some other colleagues to go. I just wanted to touch a little bit detail into utility workers. Again, these, like, I see them the most and probably request them from you all the most. And I can only imagine with just the city, how many vacant properties you have, how many, properties are negligent. I've even had situations where the property was technically a private property, but I still was begging the building division to go and board it up because it just got to a point where it was such a hazard for the community. So could you just give a little insight on the record about if you had to maybe make an estimate about how many buildings you had in a queue waiting to be boarded up right now? What is that?
That's, my goodness, waiting to be boarded up. I don't want to say a lot because these gentlemen, they just work tirelessly keeping these buildings. I mean, I know we have realistically thousands of vacant buildings. Yes, we do. But a building that's secured on Monday can be unsecured the following Monday. We know that. But these men, they work tirelessly out there going back and resecuring. And I can't say enough for Arnold Mitchell and his people. And oddly enough, what we're seeing inside the building division recently, and we did request, and Mr. Payne did agree to give us some additional money for overtime. The on-call inspectors, the nighttime calls and activity, which would include board up the following day, seems to be increasing from some level. We're getting a tremendous increase in calls from St. Louis Police and Fire Department dispatch. It is everything from automobile accidents, crazy things, to, my goodness, you name it, domestic violence, and then once the police gets out and all that stuff. And fires, of course, the accidental fires and everything else like that. So going back to these emergency personnel that we do have, and we don't have a lot of them, they work tirelessly. And I say I need to put in a plug for a gentleman that the building division hired who was a former sergeant with the police department, and he worked the problem properties unit for the police. Mr. McLaughlin is now, he was hurt on duty, and he came on to building division as a program manager, and what he does to interact with the police and the city courts problem properties unit, who is run by Mia Wood, and of course Matt Moak has background, and my staff and everything. We've got this fine-tuned pretty well. We know time is of the essence. Everything is time, date sensitive in the building division, everything. And we do our best to make sure that any requests from the legislative people, from the aldermen and the alderwomen are responded to quickly.
Yeah,
so, my board of people they're just great people.
I just wanted to highlight, and I think especially those of us who have been here for a while understand, I have found you guys to be very responsive, but I also, boarding up processes, we're not just talking about like single homes. Sometimes we're talking about large structures that can require 3 people at once from your staff to be there. So if you only have 4 total, and you can have one project that requires 3 people, it might require a couple of days to fully secure the building. I just wanted to, put that on record that 4 for the entire city of St. Louis, for something that can be happening at various places across the city. We could probably all have at least 10 in each of our wards right now, and you've only got 4 workers. No matter the structure, no matter the length of the project, just doesn't seem, durable to me. So I know it might be hard to give like an estimate, but I just want to make sure that that was on record, that these are the folks who are responsible for board ups for the entire city of St. Louis, and that they're working with not just single family homes, but all types of structures across the city. And sometimes those projects, I've had projects you guys have come and done, and you've been very diligent, but it might have taken you 4 days to fully secure it and board it up quickly. And then I'm probably calling you again about that same property, maybe 3 months later, maybe when someone else is coming back. So, I definitely, I think that's a position that's really important. And I don't think that I pray for those workers, because I can imagine how overworked they must be and how in demand they must be, and that their queue is like never done.
Yes, ma'am. And I thank you for those kind words to those guys. And Mr. Mitchell said he just can't do it with less than 5. And I'll go back a few months ago where you were on site with quite a few different departments and divisions, and it was really a picture of jurisdictional cooperation by all. And we were at the old Lutheran Hospital complex. And my God, the board up needs there, and then the police and the fire and all of us, and you were there to help, any way you could. It's a large effort sometimes for city government to do this.
Okay. I just wanted to put that on record. I think most of us understand that, but I just wanted to kind of express that, and I don't want to take up too much time, so I'll just go right to the next thing of the building division.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Alderwoman.
You're welcome. The building division, in essence, and I think the chairman is going to have some questions, so I won't take too many, because I think we really have the same concern around that agenda item. So I'll let the chairman ask majority of those questions. But I did just want to follow-up that you just haven't noted in your presentation, that you have 1 building inspector supervisor and then 4 total building inspectors. And I know a part of what we just did with the rental registry is kind of trying to get the city on a point where we're doing those building inspectors more often. And I think, Alderman Cone from the 3rd Ward has often uplifted the desire to do it on a proactive basis, and right now we do it reactive. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit to the role of building inspectors, the demand there, and what the current budget allows you. Where does it put you in meeting the need that's there?
Well, we're going to go back a little bit to the inspectors that were requested. We did request 22 Inspector 2s. Now, the reason we requested Inspector 2 categories was because we were trying to take the people who are Inspector 1s who have enough time and training and talents and skills to be promoted to a 2 position. Now, what that would do is free up a lot of slots in the building inspector 1 position. And what that also does is it opens up the entry-level position for inspectors to come in and then start their training. I need this extra amount of people because confidentially and quite honestly, because we weren't set up when we moved forward with the short-term rental, I had to cannibalize that supervisor and those 3 inspectors from other groups and move them over to get involved with the short-term rental. So I had to pull from other areas in order to get this program up and running prior to the budget requests and the adjustments that we're making now in fiscal year 26, because this all occurred in the previous fiscal year and the legislation came through, and so we had to charge forward. So that's on that part. I need staff to do this type of stuff, short-term rental and everything else. I'm most likely, in all honesty, and I haven't got my thoughts together about this Prop NS that we're still trying to figure out the funding and the slots. I think I can still make it work with this request of 5 individuals. It would be 4 inspectors and 1 supervisor funded. Since it's funded through the 1210 account, I don't know how that separate account as of this time and this contractual agreement with LRA, how that ties into my table of organization. I'm still trying to mesh the 2 together, if that makes sense. I know it sounds like we don't have a handle on it somewhat, and I'm pointing a finger at myself, but for all those who know me, I try to be completely honest and forthcoming with everybody. So it's something we're working on. So yes, I mean, we would like to, I mean, in a perfect world, if we say we needed X amount of people, we would like to be granted X amount of people because we feel that's a need that's has to be fulfilled. These inspectors are one of those needs. So, like I said, we requested 22, but we were reduced down to 18.
Okay. And my last question is actually not necessarily directly about the budget, but something I think we're all aware. It's just that the conditional use hearings are, very behind. So I know what we've been using to get over it is allowing auditors to kind of give temporary approval until the hearing takes place. And obviously the final decision rests with the department. But I was curious, have you all thought about, and I know the short-term rental has something to do with that, but have you all thought about, and is it anywhere in your budget, addressing that need so that businesses are not having to wait? And obviously we do have a temporary option with Aldridge in, but do you guys have any long-term sustainable options about how to address that need that is clearly going to, continue to be a thing in our city?
Deputy Director Mosier address that since he has a strong background in zoning.
Yep, Dylan Mosier here. I think the answer to a potential solution there, how to conduct more conditional use hearings, it would be staff. I mean, it would be probably 3 staff that would conduct the hearing as well as like a secretary. I mean, we didn't request that in our FY26 budget. The big conversation, at least in my mind, around what the heck do we do about conditional use hearings really is directly related to the short-term rental thing, because essentially in an ideal world, we'd be permitting 2,000 short-term rental operators. Originally it was supposed to be by May 6th, by yesterday. Now there's the whole temporary restraining order of it all. But, so given that a fraction of those are all existing in the A district and would require the conditional use hearing, that basically you just have a giant wave of conditional use hearings that you need to figure out how to conduct. The original plan was to, approve overtime and basically just ask folks to, work a little harder, get paid a little bit more. We had extra hearings scheduled and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, we're not asking for another team, like a team that just does the conditional use hearings. Would be open to it by all means. I'm hoping that the conditional use thing is something that will eventually pass. It's just kind of a teeth gritting moment for our zoning team right now.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, tell me if you have more thoughts on it by all means.
I can understand that there's a lot of needs in your department and you're trying to stabilize first, so I can understand why you want to focus on utility workers and on the building inspectors and on the senior plan examiners. And to me, it seems like that's the approach you're taking, is like, let's deal with what's hemorrhaging before we go asking for another staff. But I do think that the city is going to have to consider what it looks like to give that conditional use process, something that works, because I think, as much as I would like every community that has businesses come in and have an opportunity to get it. I think it's great right now that we have the filler that alders can stand in. But I think, to me, that is a key sign that a system is not working when you're relying on individuals within it to move it forward. And, heaven forbid that there would be an alder that is not as involved or not as responsive, and then that community is actually just not able to move forward until 5 months later when they can have the hearing, and hopefully the business was able to operate for 5 months or, stay financially afloat without any type of revenue or profit coming in. But, I'm not upset with you all at all. And I think I can see clearly what you're trying to do. I just think, it's important that we do our jobs and kind of put these things out there for conversation, because I do think that at some point, we're going to have to look at not even just conditional use, but even zoning variances. Like, those boards are just used so much. I hope that the zoning overhaul that we're going to do significantly helps, and everything doesn't need a zoning variance, and that helps. But I think the city at some point, and we have a lot of conversations to have, is going to have a conversation about potentially staffing these boards, or, some type of mechanism where every community is able to have a process that works for them, where every business knows, hey, once I file it, I think ideally a business shouldn't have to wait more than 60 days to get their hearing. I think that would be a dream world, just because of how expensive it is. You got a lot of months to stay afloat with payroll, with operational expenses. It's a struggle. I see it in my ward, and I'm able to help because, I can work with the community and make sure they get support and give the clearance. But I just wanted to make sure I did note that, because I'm glad you guys are thinking about what that might look like, and just wanted to make sure, obviously now we got all this new leadership, we got a federal government, we got a lot of things to deal with. But, I look forward in the future to revisiting what we can do to really make these systems and processes work, and to eliminate some of the bureaucracy and time periods of length that can hurt us economically.
Yeah, and I'm here to have that conversation. Love that. Love that you're even commenting on that right now. Just one piece of food for thought while you're thinking about it. And I know we're way outside of the budget at this point, but if you want the timeline to be 60 days, I will just say that we have time constraints that basically make that process take a minimum of about 21 days or so. 15 days mandated by the state of Missouri. Plus, you got to put something in the paper of record, so you got to get that to them within a certain period of time and whatnot. So, about a third of the time frame that you would like it to take, pretty much is a minimum to begin with. Then after that, it's kind of capacity at that point.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alderman Browning?
Thank you. Just want to start by saying I think the building division is perhaps one of the most important divisions in the entire city. It is the buildings that our people live in and work in and do their business in that really make the city. And we know that in order for you to do your job properly, you need to have the proper resources, the proper personnel. And we really do see a difference every day from the work you all do. So I just want to start by acknowledging that. I think when I look at these budget numbers, I think it looks like it's getting harder and harder for you to do your jobs. And what I'd say, just starting out here, like looking at your revenue, it's down from past years. So about 12.5 million in 2022, a little over 11 million in 23, a little over 9 million in 24, and we're looking at about estimated about maybe 10 million for this year. Certain things that I'm seeing drop significantly: building permits, plumbing permits, mechanical permits.
Trade permits, yes.
Why are we seeing that drop?
I can't answer that right now. I do see the same drop when I go on the Tableau site and I start tracking, because I use that site to track my best performing inspectors and my worst performing. So that's how we push those people. I don't have an answer on why the trade activity has slowed down. I don't know if it's a cycle of people not doing some things. I do know that in talking to a lot of developers lately, there is a lot of things in the planning stage that once we kick it off is going to be a pretty strong development spurt for the city government. Everything right now is in the planning stage, and when I talk to developers now, they tell me that a lot of times these things take much longer now because they have to go through all kinds of creative ways to gain financing for these things nowadays, whereas in the past it didn't. So I guess that may be part of the cause. I wish I had a precise answer for you, Alderman, where I say it is because of this, but sir, I don't. We see it too. We see it too. And we're also concerned about it.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand you might not have the full picture, and I'm just trying to piece it together myself, because I do hear from builders and people who would be out there paying these permit fees to you all that are saying, yeah, it's difficult to obtain financing. It's twice, maybe 3 times as expensive as it was just a few years ago to borrow money. And construction costs are up around 40% in the last 5 years, all of which make it really, really difficult to start a project, much less, go through all the permitting and all that. So
I will say this, and I'm sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Because of the financing and everything to build from the ground up new, what we're slowly seeing is an encouragement for people to take existing buildings and completely remodel and rehab them. So we're starting to see some odd transition into that instead of building from the ground up new. That is for the residential side. The commercial side is a completely different animal to itself. There is a little bit of a slowdown right now. They're going through a finishing phase of a lot of the activity in the hospital complex, we refer to it, up on Kings Highway. But there are some pending projects that they're discussing with the commercial high-rise people that they're getting ready to kick off and go into in the future. Once again, they have to lock in financing and everything. And these guys tell me they have to go through a lot of different steps now to get the total construction loan that they're looking for. It's different. It's different. So
yeah, and I think we're seeing
part of the complex world we're living in right now.
Sure. Yeah, and I think we're seeing some additional threats on the horizon. I mean, we saw Washington University pause their construction on the Danforth campus,
yes,
which is concerning. And I realize it's not all in the city, but if they were to pause construction on the medical campus, that would be a huge hit to the city as well.
Absolutely.
And, you know, tariffs, are they coming? Are they not? You know, are they going to be on the exact item that you need for your construction? That's all so uncertain that it then becomes incredibly difficult to estimate the risk of building these structures. So we can appreciate the complication, but given that it links directly to your funding, you know, that's something I want to keep an eye on, because as we talk about positions that need to be filled and everything else, that certainly plays a factor.
And that's something we have to realistically be conscious. So, yes, sir.
Great. I think when I look at your goals in the annual operating plan, I noticed that the goal for inspections has decreased down by about 1,000 this year.
Yeah.
Can you explain why that might be?
Once again, are we talking, I'm sorry, could you, on which type of inspection? And then I'd have a clearer understanding.
Yeah, let me look this up real quick. It's under the annual operating plan, page 172. Get my book here. I am looking at.
Would that be the housing conservation, sir?
That is the housing conservation, yeah.
Yeah. The only thing we can think of is that another oddity. The housing conservation program is based on, once a certificate's issued, that if the individuals don't leave, there's no new certificate needed. We assume that people who are coming here and moving to the St. Louis area are finding it to be comfortable, and they stay. They're long-term tenants. So if there's a change of tenants, then that triggers in new housing conservation. So it may be a signal of the success of the city to promote itself as a decent, safe environment to stay in. I know in my particular area, there was a young couple that moved in halfway down the block, and normally they come and go because they're using what was in the past the city as a ladder to move up in their particular life. But they have stayed. They seem happy. The kids are happy, and I hope I hope that's the sign. I hope that's the signal. The city has turned the corner, and we are a stable, safe community. Right.
Dylan Mosier here. Another piece of rationale might possibly be to go back to the short-term rental thing. The data that we received was that there's approximately 3,500 unique short-term rental listings across approximately 2,000 short-term rental units, meaning some of them advertise on Vrbo and Airbnb, Booking.com, that type of thing. So we're looking at possibly permitting about 2,000 of those. Previously, because we didn't have regulation, those units, those dwellings, they were under the housing conservation program just because that was the only residential occupancy permit we had. So, you know, we're looking at potentially flipping 2,000 HCDs, Housing Conservation District inspections, into short-term rental. So, I mean, you know, that would move something from this type to this type as well.
And the short-term rentals, though, is that an additional burden? Do you have to inspect those more often, or is that certainly there's a surge at the beginning of these people that are registered, but is that anticipated, like you said, do you think that's going to die off in the future?
Well, there's an initial crest, although we, you know, will be inspecting those units annually because of the transient nature of them. It just needs a, you know, major difference between a stable owner-occupied family versus 20 to 30 different groups of partiers maybe, you know, renting this unit. I shouldn't characterize them that way. They might be families as well, but different people nonetheless.
Okay, well, yeah, part of like a pet peeve of mine when I've been down here is that we tend to add more and more things for our departments to do without adding additional resources for them to do it. And so I want to make sure that when we're asking you to do this, which is an absolute need in the city, right? I mean, this happens. New needs pop up, and short-term rentals were not a thing 20 years ago, at least not in any measurable number. And now it's an issue that we have got to regulate. And so it makes sense that the building division would be the one to regulate that. But we want to make sure that we're not asking you to do things that we're not equipping you to do.
Yeah.
As Ed indicated, go ahead.
That's where the extra inspectors that were requested came in, Alderman. And as far as housing conservation, Alderwoman Saunier had introduced some legislation. We have a new housing conservation ordinance that actually will require us, now the key is, do we charge again, will require us to go back in every 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So we're at the beginning of a cycling, a change that's occurring inside the city. So I don't know how this is all going to look in a couple of years from now, but the new legislation's kicked in. We're redoing all of that. So now we got a 3-year cycle on this. So, you know, to be determined.
Yeah, well, we'll be keeping an eye on it, and I just encourage you to let us know if there's any way we can help, because we want to make sure that not only we're getting these done, but also that, you know, I'm hearing from short-term rental operators as well that, you know, there's this risk when the regulations go back into effect that if they don't have a permit by the certain date, Airbnb will just yank all their listings and cancel all their listings. And since they do schedule months out, I mean, there's probably people who have rented places for Christmas at this time, just, you know, like people that plan ahead, right? But if all those get canceled, and then, you know, that operator potentially loses out on thousands of dollars, and then also the city misses out on that revenue as well. So it's something that we'll be watching again, because we want to make sure that we can get this done. And I'd almost ask the mayor's office and to work with you all to make sure that if we need to pause these regulations a little bit more so that we can catch up, because what we don't want is to run into a hard wall and then have the platform per the ordinance that we wrote. And I think we should take responsibility here, but like, and as I understand it, we are looking at a revision of that too, possibly. So there might be language tweaks here and there to make it work better, but certainly would like to work with you all to make sure that we get this to work for you and for the operators and for our residents, so that everyone can be as happy as possible. The next question I have for you all is about building board ups. So we talked a little bit about it, and Alderwoman Saunier asked some great questions. I witnessed this, I think we all witnessed this firsthand in our ward, that it's really hard to keep boarded up buildings secure. And I noticed that there's certain buildings that, yeah, we'll get the board up crew out there. It'll be 2 days later and they'll have yanked the boards off and entered the building again. Sometimes these are really dangerous buildings, which means that the city has to spend more resources on, as you said, you know, fire has to risk their cadaver dogs, police have to go in, and it's just costing the city almost an impossible number to calculate when we're spending all this money. You mentioned that there's money in the budget this year, $744,000 for security and that's just for the railway exchange?
Yes, sir. That was for security services that we put in for any type of activity that reflect what we had to do at the railway exchange. For security, we hope we don't have to use security, but since the legislation was passed and we didn't really have it budgeted per se, we added it to the budget as a protection.
Okay, yeah, I that's just, I guess, it's a lot of money, and it could be someone's salary, it could be another inspector, it could be another plan reviewer. And I just want to make sure that, like, when we understand the need to develop buildings like that, because that it occupies a square city block, and I think we all feel the need, but it's urgent because otherwise it's like lighting, money on fire when we could be using a building and even getting taxes from it, but instead we're spending money just keeping people out of it.
Yeah.
So want to make sure that we're
We had to think outside the box on that one.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and I appreciate your creativity on it too. I mean, I think that's what it takes, and it's a beautiful historical building, and so that's the other side of your job that I think is so important, is preserving our amazing architecture, and you all take that so seriously and do such a valiant effort to secure those buildings, to keep them alive. We tried to give you some extra tools last year too, with increased administrative fines. Increased board up fees.
yes,
And did see those 2 positions that we added in there, and
Yes.
the Vacant Building Initiative 2 fund. Can you tell me why are there 2 Vacant Building Initiative funds?
I don't know how we came up with two, the first one and the second one. I'm not sure how that came through legislatively. But I mean, we'll take every ordinance that's given to us for enforcement, and we will enforce it, and we will take every job that we have to do, and we will fulfill that job. I do know on that increased fines legislation that went through, one of the really strong penalties now is when we catch people who are knocking down buildings without a permit.
Mm-hmm.
That is a minimum of a $30,000 fine and or half the assessed value of the building. And that is going to stop a lot of people from trying to do that type of activity, because they constantly try to knock down buildings, steal the bricks, and get in, get out, and all of that. So
I'll have to check the legislation, but I believe we had the wording as half the appraised value,
That's what-
which
yeah,
which
half
it
the
hits even
appraised-
harder.
yeah, yeah.
And that's part of an effort to seriously take on these people who are literally destroying our city. I mean, they're destroying the buildings that make up the fabric of our city. Oftentimes, these are buildings that cannot be replaced because they were built over 100 years ago, and we just do not build these buildings.
No, and I'll relate a story. Happened about a year ago. I was meeting a couple walking down the street. They were in town visiting, and I talked to them a little while. And before the couple left, they said, "You have a beautiful city," and that was nice to hear. You know, it was nice to hear. They were walking down towards the arch. So, absolutely, what we do, what we all do together to maintain what we have, is it's extremely important.
Well, thank you. I think that's all I have for now. But again, I just want to emphasize my gratitude towards you all. And again, just please do not hesitate to reach out if we can help.
Well, we thank you for your support, Alderman.
Alderman Devoti.
Commissioner Wade, it's good to see you, and I appreciate your
Is
explanation
your mic on,
this
Alderman?
morning. Let me get closer.
Okay.
It's good to see you this morning. Hopefully
Yes.
that's a little better for the folks at home.
And it's good to see you because you're my new alderman.
Well, it's absolutely good then to make your acquaintance.
Yeah.
Deputy Commissioner, I've got to ask you a question. In the back and forth about the vacant building funds, you had a smirk, and I've got to ask, what were you thinking about?
The question about the Vacant Building Initiative Fund 2, why are there 2, is that right?
Why are there 2? Can you explain?
Yeah, I was smirking because was racking my brain and trying to recall like an email interaction, or if it was a personal conversation, or how I can answer the question. I actually did just look at my email. I believe the reason that there is a second Vacant Building Initiative Fund, a Vacant Building Initiative Fund 2, is actually for the earmarking of those funds per the ordinance. I think it's just kind of a transactional thing to get the money where it needs to go. I know that's kind of a vague answer, but I think that's the reason why I looked at an email with
Understood. I thought we would have a meatier, something juicier response based upon the look on your face.
and nice to meet you as well. Yes, we haven't had the chance to be acquainted.
either one of you, there was a tremendous amount of talk early on about the plan examiner position. Can you educate me about the typical experience of such a person? We talked in terms of background, we talked in terms of paid disparity. I don't know that I have heard the experience, the education necessary for one to do that job. Could you educate me?
Absolutely, sir. So the senior plan examiners historically are all licensed architects and engineers. So they've all reached that level of expertise. We normally, throughout history, have always had at least one civil engineer on staff. That civil engineer tries to coordinate and help building division staff with a lot of the floodplain management activity that the city sees. We are trying to encourage SEMA to get involved with the floodplain management activity. That is an ongoing conversation that I've had with the SEMA commissioner, off and on, not extensive. The other plan examiners that do not reach the senior level, they all are nearing graduating from a university with an architectural or an engineering background. Now, there's a new category of people that the city of St. Louis does not take advantage of, other communities do, and that is plan review people who are certified and licensed by the International Code Council. See? So, in my particular position, historically throughout the years, it's either been a licensed architect and or engineer. I am a licensed building official through the ICC. We have kind of expanded this recognition of licensing. So it's always evolving somewhat, to be honest with you, but we always try to find good qualified people who do this type of stuff. Now, not through the interview process, this is where we find out, not everybody with an architectural or engineering degree can adapt to or understand government code enforcement and all of the code related requirements through the international codes. The International Code Council is a family of codes. They all interact and intermingle. I'm not sure if you are aware of that, Alderman.
I am vaguely aware, yes.
So historically, the city of St. Louis was all under the old BOCA building codes. They were originated headquartered out of Chicago. The state of Missouri, for some reason, still references the BOCA code, even though the BOCA building codes were abolished and abandoned in 2000 and absorbed by the International Code Council, which is nationwide. Why the state legislature still refers to something that has been abandoned and non-existent since the year 2000 is beyond a lot of local code enforcement people. We just don't understand it.
So backing up just for a moment, you mentioned that traditionally, or at least to this point, we have not taken advantage of folks with a particular background. Why not? What is the holdup? And would that help us fill some of these positions?
We would have to discuss this with the Department of Personnel. They would have to agree to that these other licensed individuals have a degree of talent and skills that are equal to. And some architects and engineers will go beyond their license, and they will also obtain a license and a certification as a building official through ICC or as a master code professional. Now, I will say this for the building division in the city of St. Louis. We have, I know, the only certified licensed ICC fire marshal in the state of Missouri inside our department. That gentleman has gone beyond my licensing level, and he has now achieved a master code professional status there are only a few hundred of them throughout the entire nation. So the St. Louis City Building Division is constantly trying to evolve and get better and train. But unfortunately, a lot of times when we reach a level of expertise and training within the inspectors, other communities go, they crap on themselves.
Understood, and you talked quite a bit about that early on.
Yeah.
Yes. I noticed on review of the budget for this upcoming year that there is an item with respect to computer and tech system development to the tune of about $780,000, if I'm reading correctly. Does that particular item go to the digital plan review software that you discussed earlier?
Of it, and it's also part of the building permits online. Right now, you can apply online for mechanical permits, plumbing permits, electrical permits, housing conservation permits. We haven't achieved the final, kind of some of the final steps is to get the building permits online so that we can make it easier for the citizens.
So that is part of that process, fair?
It's part of the continuing process in the building division to modernize.
I missed part of your discussion with Alderman Browning with respect to the Railway Exchange building. And a question that I had also went to the line item respecting professional services. Again, I know that the item for this fiscal year is quite a bit more than actual expenditures dating back to 2023 on an annual basis.
Yes.
And again, I admit that I missed part of that discussion. Did that have to do with Railway Exchange?
No, sir, that doesn't have to do with the security, but the professional services might be tied into the, is this the Granicus?
It is, yes.
Yeah, so we have, on the short-term rental, we have an agreement with a company called Granicus, and they scour the entire website of all the Airbnbs and all of these people, and then they forward data to us, which gives us a clear target of particular addresses throughout the area that need a short-term rental. So we have to pay for that service, sir.
And so that is part of this legislation that we passed that is now on hold per Judge White's order.
Yes, sir.
Understood.
Yes, sir.
Is that the type of expense that we should expect to see on an annual basis moving forward?
I believe the previous administration has it set up to where this particular company or organization requires an annual fee. So I'm not sure if anybody else can accomplish what they accomplish right now, Alderman.
Fair enough. I appreciate that answer.
Yeah.
Sir, again, I thank you for your patience and your education.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all.
It's good to have you in the ward.
Thank you.
You know where to reach me.
Yes, sir, I do.
And you got a really good alderman from that ward. Even though you used to hang out in Hyde Park in the 14th, you got a good one down in the 5th. Before I go back to Alderman Browning, if we could bring a deputy director from the Budget Division, Mr. Jim. You know, there was a lot of questions about there are 2 vacancy funds. Seemed like he may have a little bit more. Someone who does the numbers maybe can explain that to be helpful for the committee.
Absolutely.
If you could just state your name and the department you're with.
Jim Benoist, Deputy Budget Director, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Legislation passed the end of last year, earlier this year, that identified some existing violations and then increased the fees. So there's an existing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner, there's an existing vacant building initiative fund that is supported by, I believe, a fee that the owner of the property has to pay either once a quarter or once a year. What the legislation did is identified 2 violations and increased those fees. In addition, it allocated them to certain expenditures. So I believe half of the revenue generated goes to CDA for grants regarding some sort of housing. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact language. And then the other part of the other 50% of the revenue goes to maintain the program. So we thought just within the budget process, it made sense to create a different fund, a different cost center to track those revenues and then also track the expenditures on the other side of that. So within your line item detail, you'll see the building vision was allocated 2 building inspectors. The city councilor's office was allocated 1 attorney to assist with those collection efforts. And then there's a cost center within CDA's budget, which allocates their 50%. So we just thought it made sense to split that apart so we could track the revenues and expenditure. Thank you. So in other words, it was a response to the legislation.
Gotcha. So per the ordinance that, it sounds like the building division was already collecting fees and fines for certain things, and then we created or passed an ordinance that is collecting additional fees and fines at a different rate. So we wanted to keep those pots separate.
Yeah, just to identify the revenues and track the expenditures, because it changed the fee structure considerably on the one. I think it's $30,000 or 1/2 of the appraised value. They can probably speak to that better than I can, but yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm gonna go to Alderman Browning before I wrap up with my questions. Alderman Browning?
Hello again. I just had one last thing I wanted to ask you about because it's on my radar and I forgot. There's a bill in the Missouri legislature right now, House Bill 1264. You're nodding your head, so I'm glad you're already aware of it.
Oh, yeah,
but for everyone else's education, it would require us to review permits and give a yay or a nay on them within 30 days.
30 days.
Or it would just automatically get approved.
Yes.
Can you, it sounds like you're aware of it. I'm hoping that the gridlock in the Capitol right now will just put an end to this because to me, that's a very dangerous thing to require. But can you share a little bit why that might be a problem and why they should not pass it?
Well, it's not just a problem for us. I've talked to other code officials. I've networked with them throughout the region. They're all upset about this. It is a tremendous burden on large communities more than anybody else. I'll give you, and I could talk about this for a long time, but let's talk about large projects. My God, these plans come in and they are like this. And it takes a long time to go through all of those plans. The review process is lengthy. There is a back and forth with the developers and the architects, and 30 days is just nonsense. I don't know what motivated them to do this. I don't know who is encouraging this legislation, but it's very dangerous. There's going to be a lot of communities that if you don't get this approved and out the door in 30 days in their hands and rubber stamped, these contractors have a green light to go out and start the project. Now, the other thing about this is if they have a green light to go out and start the project prior to permit, how much responsibility do we have to go out and inspect the project? See? Now, I'm almost tempted if this thing goes through, I'm treading in real strange legal waters here to go out and possibly stop the project somehow legally and drag them back down. I don't know. It is such a terrible piece of legislation, Alderman, and I don't know where it's at right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on it, and yeah, you could talk about it for a long time. The danger that I'm reading into that you could have buildings that do not meet fire code, do not meet plumbing standards, do not meet electrical standards that are suddenly allowed to begin construction just because you didn't have the staff to review it on time. Even if you had 30 reviewers, I imagine you still couldn't get through some of these plans in 30 days.
My God, the review process going on right now on the conversion of the AT&T tower is tremendous. Besides this huge project that we're doing down by the old Crundon Martin, south of the Arch, I mean, we're going back and forth and looking at all this. We have other agencies involved, CDA, everybody else. It's, for some small community, yeah, I can see them doing something like this. For large metropolitan areas, this is nonsense. It's just, we're too big and we're too complex. I wish they would do it based on population. You know, if you got some small town, 10,000 people or less, yeah, go ahead and do it. But
Is the city, are you aware, are we sending people to either testify on this or advocate on our behalf?
I have not personally been involved with going there and testifying or doing everything. I'm not sure about the other code officials, the area that I talked to. I'm sure there's a lot of pushback on this. I don't know currently where it's at in Jeff City. I don't know if you do. You may educate me on that. But
It's been second read and referred to committee.
I just, if they wanted to do this, it should be based on population size. That's the only kind of compromise that I guess I could make with the person who's introducing the legislation is you should do this on population size, because it's doable in small communities. It is not doable in large metropolitan areas.
Well, thank you for your thoughts and appreciate the extra question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alderman Browning. And for folks that are watching back home, that is House Bill 1264, like Alderman Browning said, it is being second read in the Senate. So, Commissioner, call the senators and let them know kind of where you stand. Hopefully with Jeff City only having about maybe 13 more days left, me and Jim know how those days go, that this won't get across the finish line, but it did move pretty far this session, which can always be refiled next session. So thank you, Alderman Browning, for bringing that up, that which can be a problem for the building division and also for the city of St. Louis. A few questions, Commissioner. So again, you've budgeted for or requested 231, and you were budgeted for 212 employees, correct? Last year, you guys were only able to fill 167 employees. Does that sound about right?
That's close.
Okay. And sometimes the book could be a little off from
Yeah.
when it was approved and how many, if any, new hires. What has been, I guess, the difficulty? Because I think one of the thing is when it comes to the building division, I think like Alderman Browning said, it's one of the most important division. There's a lot of important division, but building division, being under public safety, has a great deal of responsibility of the public safety and well-being of the community also. A lot of times we just talk about policing, but making sure that buildings are safe, making sure that they're boarded up, making sure that they're safe in the community, I think is critical. What has been kind of the holdup for the building division? And I know there's new leadership. You've been doing a great job, in my opinion.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Well, at least I appreciate your honesty and taking accountability where you can, and sometimes it's out of your hands.
Yeah.
You still take that accountability. What's the holdup of not being able to get those employees in the building division that are greatly needed?
Salaries problem. We've talked about.
Yeah, I would assume that starting pay, salaries, I wish I had some way of reaching out and recruiting people from a lot of, when I first took that position up there last March, I reached out, after a couple of months, I reached out to Rankin Tech, and I had a very encouraging conversation with them, and they were supposed to reach out with the Department of Personnel to try to get their graduates to apply. I mean, it's I don't know if I have a single answer to this. I mean, it's frustrating, but once again, I'm being truthful. Any thoughts?
I guess maybe I would add to the conversation, some of these positions do have sort of a natural churn, the same way that you might think about other, fast food jobs or something like that, customer service reps. We don't have the data on it, but, there's usually a not a lot of them necessarily go the full distance and just work for the city for 30 plus years and retire. I mean, some of these jobs just naturally, people work them 3, 4, 5 years. And if there's not a natural fit that they can find inside the building division or city hall, they're probably going to take their talents elsewhere or something like that.
What are the most critical, if the budget committee wanted to advocate on behalf of the budget division, what are probably the most critical roles that would be beneficial to the building division to have those roles? I know we talked about a few, but just so that as we move through our process and maybe start working on amendments and work with Jim and others to see if that's possible, work at that?
I tell you, it's a team effort up there, and I hate to prioritize any particular group of people, but the entire plan exam section is very important. We have to get these developers and these citizens in who want to build everything from a deck to a garage to completely remodel the house. We have to get those permits reviewed and issued and out there so they can start their project. With that being said, it's a basic, I need boots on the ground kind of thing. I need people out there to do all of this inspection activity, to perform all of these code enforcement functions. We can deal with the processing. We're trying to modernize all the processing of paper and everything and become paperless and everything else. But for me personally, I think the plan review, the zoning aspect, and the boots on the ground are like, those are 3 priorities. And part of that boots on the ground mentality is the tremendous job that the city board team is doing. So I hate to pick anybody and say that they're special. I don't like doing that. Everybody inside the building division is special. They all have a very important role to do, from healthy homes down to lead abatement, down to board up, down to the inspectors out there running around trying to make sure everything is a safe environment. So Alderman, I don't want to single out anybody.
No, I understand it. I mean, always going for receptionist when I'm always, coming up, bugging you, and Ms. Blue and everyone is critical in that office. I think the question is, what positions can just, some departments may have a little bit more efficiency because they got the manpower or the boots on the ground, and some departments may not. So, what can we do, I think, from the budget committee as we look at your request is not what you were granted, and hopefully we get to move mountains, but what maybe can we advocate for from our end, support the building division?
Yeah, I'll just say, we have a slide in the presentation. These are the things that we view as very critical that were part of our original quest. Were not approved by the budget division. So, the payroll specialist, the additional plan examiner from 3 of those to 4 of those, the utility workers, trying to get that up to 5. Maybe. So
I'm just curious if you had to tier those, what would be like the tier system? Because I think if we go to ENA and say, hey, here we want 20 more positions, we'll see how that goes. If you guys can get it, we'll see how the board. But I think maybe there's an opportunity to maybe see if 3 or 4. So I'm curious, like, what is a tier, and can grow from that, and then as this budget committee plans to meet all year round, see how we can advocate for more of those throughout the year.
Yeah, I won't rank what we beyond just putting them out there. I will just point out that we take some of the cut on the chin, going from the request of 231 down to 212. I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're maybe asking for like 7 in our presentation specifically. The rest of it, we'll take the cuts, that were given to us. We get that, we are asking for 200 plus, even though we actively only have approximately 170 employees working right now. I mean, we're aware that, it makes sense to cut something if we're chronically at 170, but still also annually requesting 120 or 220 plus.
Gotcha. And that's what I'm really just trying to understand, because I know, we have an amazing budget director and budget team, and our budget director is conservative with those dollars, which is good. You want to. And, if he noticed, those positions haven't been filled, it's harder to advocate. But if there is like 2 or 3 that we can use, the Board of Aldermen's budget committee bully pulpit, which we really don't have. But, to advocate, I was just curious where maybe those kind of most critical, even though all positions are critical, where could we just kind of be a help? And, that may not be an answer today, and I think you gave us a list. But as we go through our process and, get to the amendments, just want to make sure we're being helpful as much as we can and knowing where to start.
I think we're going to look at positions that are not critical. One keeps popping in my mind. You've got me, you planted a seed, so.
Well, good start. So now we just got to keep watering that seed and let it grow.
So I'm going to think this through a little bit.
Okay. Well, we know how to reach you. This is just the start of the process. We will try to wrap this up by May. So as that seed is planted, we're going, we got to nurture it a lot to get some roots out of there. Also, I would say, I plan to work with Jim from the Budget Division and you all to figure out what is going on with that prop. And it could hopefully just been an error where we can, if there's funding for it, be able to move that through the amendment process. And then if not, I think that one's going to be, at least me personally, something that we're going to have to figure out how to put those positions in. So
yeah, that's on today's table upstairs. I got to get this thing working.
Gotcha. And I would just say, encourage you probably talk to Mr. Jim, because we had a little conversation, and say, hopefully it's an error and the funds are there and we can just easily figure that out. And then if not, we all work as a team, make sure that those are filled. Seeing, did you have any other questions, Mr.? All right. Seeing no other questions, Alderman Cone is online, and I just knew he was going to pop on in, and I'm glad he is, because I know he has some detailed things. So Alderman Cone, any questions for the commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to belabor it too much longer, and I know my colleagues covered a lot of the things that I had questions or concerns about, but just a few things, Ed, if you don't mind. The annual inspections, how are we going to start getting those back so that we're doing them proactively?
Would that be the surveying the ward area, that type of thing?
Correct.
So if we can get back to, if I can get all these open slots hired, then I was going to approach the Board of Aldermen about going back to the 1/3 cycle for the wards. The wards are much larger now, so I'm not sure if 1/3 or 1/4, or that was the discussion I was going to have with you folks. Another discussion was, if we can't accomplish that, if you could give me, or the building division, a priority area in your ward that we will keep targeting for code compliance. But I'd prefer like a sweep scenario. But the wards are much larger now, Alderman, and I'm not sure if 1/3. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I'll be asked.
I don't think the size of the ward matters. The city is the same size.
It is, sir. It is.
At the end of the day, we were inspecting the entire city every 3 years, and that's not happening at all right now. And that's a huge issue. I keep bringing this up, every opportunity I have. It impacts so many different things. It impacts the quality of housing. It impacts the revenue that we generate from the real estate tax. It impacts, board ups. It impacts literally every single thing that we, talked about here those inspections, have a dramatic impact on the business of our neighborhoods in our city. And I fully don't believe that residents understand that the city is not doing their job by inspecting those properties proactively or doing a annual survey of properties. And then things like the assessments that just recently came out hit their mailboxes, and they're expected to pay a 300% increase in their assessed, real estate property tax. And meanwhile, they've got a property right next door to them that is falling into the ground that very more likely than not has not even had an inspection on it.
Well, I hope it's already under notice, but I mean, that's my hope as a commissioner. So we will look.
Ed, how do you expect it to be under notice if
through
it's not being called in?
Well, that's the key, if it's not being called in. We put a lot of trust in the CSP program.
But that's what I'm saying. The citizens are not, we have not done any communication to our citizens telling them that the building division does not inspect properties unless it's by permit or complaint. So how are, any average citizens of this city supposed to know? I feel like I'm a one-man band out here sometimes telling people this, but and people are still shocked, even though I bring it up at every neighborhood meeting, every town hall. People are still shocked that the city of St. Louis is not doing these inspections. And so it's really problematic that we're relying upon citizens to report these issues, and they're not even aware of that. But frankly, I think it's a disservice to our citizens that we do expect them. That means that they have to be familiar with what is even in the code. Some people don't realize, that some of these things aren't in our code. And so, or what is in the code. We just had a whole conversation earlier this meeting about, certain people who have qualifications to be building inspectors aren't even familiar with the enforcement side of it. And here we are saying, hey, you average citizen, we need you to report any violations of code.
All right, I have it duly noted, sir, and we will have a department meeting, and we will try to coordinate with the board, and we will try to, starting this year, go back to the ward survey. And,
okay, I mean, we have to, Ed, I can't stress this enough. Even when we have neighbors who are putting in extra hours, volunteering to address things like vacancy in our communities, filing litigation for, tackling vacancy in our communities, and then they go to court, and these buildings that have been brought forth with vacancy litigation haven't even had fines from the city or citations from the city. And then the cases just get dropped because the city's not doing its job and citing these properties. This impacts so many different things. And one of the things that I keep reminding folks, it's not just about the property values and maintaining property values in the city of St. Louis, which, by the way, brings in, $50 to $60 million in revenue for our city. 20% of that real estate tax goes to the city, but 60% of that real estate tax goes to our schools. So we are robbing our public school students, our children, of valuable dollars for education when we are not inspecting properties. It also impacts the demolition by neglect. It impacts as I mentioned earlier, vacancy and board up. So we have to figure that out, Ed. And if that means that you need more resources to do it, we need to be able to know what that resource is in terms of the budget so that we can help you.
well, as I was going through this, which I'm making notes, and I did put down manpower question mark. So I know I'm going to have to make this I'll have to take people out of other areas so they sweep the area. I assume this would not just be a building division thing. I think we used to have other city departments also involved in helping this. kind of some of it was a PR with the fire department handing out smoke detectors and so forth like that. But the building division will certainly look into getting this program back up and running.
Well, I think you're thinking of a separate program, which were like the block sweeps, where
Yeah, we
you
used to
had
do that, yeah.
forestry and building and nuisance property and NIS and all of them just kind of tackle a particular block that had a known number of nuisance issues on it. I'm talking about just doing the basic job that the city is supposed to be doing.
Just the ES code enforcement activity.
Right.
Okay, all right. All right, sir, I've got it down.
And speaking of demolition by neglect, what are we doing, or are we doing anything with that ordinance?
Which ordinance was that now, sir?
I mean, that was an ordinance that was passed by Alderman Craig Schmidt probably a decade ago. You know, people who were allowing their properties to decline, it provided the city the opportunity to continue upping the fines and doing more fines on top of that.
Well,
We've housing for.
Yeah, we've just increased all of the fines tied up to all of this stuff. I'd have to, you mentioned housing court. How did that tie in as far as?
So, we can take this offline. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you know, it also ties into just having inspectors and being able to do regular proactive surveys of the city, so that, you know, these properties that continue to decline, whether that's, you know, by known actors like Paul McKee, or by you know, other lesser known actors that frankly have a ton of properties that they're, you know, buying either at tax sale or out of foreclosure, and then just sitting on them and not doing anything. In some cases, we've got folks that own dozens, if not, you know, a few hundred properties. Or we have, you know, single, you know, families that, you know, someone might have, you know, passed away, or they inherited a property, or, you know, someone moved into a senior care facility and their families have no idea how to manage the property. They sit on it for, you know, years and years, don't do anything. Meanwhile, the property continues to fall apart. You know, the roof starts to leak, the walls start to, you know, crumble. And then we've got, you know, basically a building that needs to be demolished. And, you know, those demolitions, by the way, you know, not often as, you know, talked about, those demolitions, once they happen, then decrease the revenue that comes into the city, because there's no improvements on the land. So people are just being taxed for the land, versus for a building, even though it's vacant, is still worth more than a vacant plot of land. And so we're paying money to demolish buildings to then decrease the revenue that's coming into the city. So being able to stabilize these buildings, being able to find them, getting them into productive use is really critical, and we can't do that if we're not inspecting them. I've kind of hit on that pretty hard, so you know, we can have a follow-up conversation. But the other thing that, you know, has come up in the past, and I noticed in the operational plans that you all have lead remediation listed, and that you're remediating lead from properties, which, you know, just a year or two ago, the previous director said that you all are not doing lead remediation anymore with the additional fees that were being collected, and instead those were being used to pay for inspectors. So I'm curious, are we actually doing lead remediation, or are we just inspecting properties to determine whether or not it needs lead remediation?
No, we're still doing lead remediation. I have budgeted 5 lead abatement inspectors. I have 5 additional lead inspectors. The only building inspectors that I have, and that's based on detection, not remediation, is I've got an additional 6 funded, but that lead, LRF lead 620003 pays for the lead inspectors, lead abatement, the program manager, of course, which is John Carrico, and some of the clerical stuff. But we're not, as far as I know, we're still doing lead abatement. I know John reached out to me some months ago about a problematic individual. His last name is Sanchez, and they did a full lead remediation on a piece of rental property he had, but they never could substantiate whether he had any children under the age of 6 in there. So I think the activity is still going on. I'm surprised if it's not. I don't know that at all. You're hearing that lead abatement is not occurring? Is that what I'm hearing?
Director Oswald said as much, I believe, during a HUD's hearing last session.
Well, I don't want to contradict Mr. Oswald, but I did talk to.
So I don't know if you recall, Ed, but probably about a decade ago, we increased the fees for occupancy, and out of that increase, I believe it was 60% of that increase was to go towards lead remediation.
Yeah, I thought it was $2.
Not lead inspection.
$2 per thousand or something like that all goes to the LRF fund. I may be off on that dollar amount. Percentage-wise, I don't know. So Alderman, what I'll do after today is I'll reach out to John Carrico and I'll get a clearer understanding on the lead abatement activities going on up there. Because we have it budgeted, we have it in the TO.
Right, but there was an increase several years ago with the increase in the fines, the occupancy, the housing inspection fines, or housing conservation, housing inspection fines,
Okay.
or not fines, sorry, fees.
Okay.
And with the increase in that fee, there was supposed to be an increase in revenue that went to lead remediation. And that's what Director Oswald said was being repurposed for inspectors versus the actual remediation of lead.
Once again, I'd have to get a very clear understanding of the comments made by the former commissioner and the program manager on this area, and then we could discuss it later.
Happy to.
Yeah.
And lastly, I just want to reiterate, I know a few of my colleagues have mentioned this, but that board up crew, we get requests for board up all the time. And I know that they're working very hard to do that. Some areas, those board ups, might stay intact for a couple weeks or a couple months. Other areas, I was just at a neighbor's house 2 days ago. We boarded up the basement and first floor structure, and then someone broke into it literally a day or two later. And so we need to be able to address those situations, because if folks are able to access those, obviously various materials start to go missing. Fires happen oftentimes in the winter time. And so it just contributes to further decay and nuisances in our community. And so, I'm not on the committee, so I can't vote for amendments, but I would, encourage my colleagues to ensure that, we're putting more money into both the board up program and our annual inspections.
They go above and beyond. That's a
They
good
do.
group of people. So.
Yep. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate your time this morning.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Cone. With that, I also want to thank Commissioner for being here, Deputy Commissioner. Very healthy conversation, and sure will be some more that we have as a budget committee move on. Not seeing any questions from any more of my colleagues, so thank you guys for being here. We're going to move on to the excise. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
That's why I look when you didn't move your head. All right. We have the Excise Commissioner, Mr. McDonald, coming on up. You can just state your name and what department you're with, and you can be able to proceed.
Okay, Alderman Rasheen. My name is Miles McDonald. I'm the Excise Commissioner for the City of St. Louis. We're in the Department of Public Safety. I'm here today to discuss our budget. I'd like to thank the Honorable Board of Aldermen for giving me this opportunity. If, with your permission, I'd like to give a brief. Okay, thank you. I'd like to give kind of a brief overview of our situation.
Absolutely.
Okay, our budget for this year is, our approved budget is $731,565. We're about, I think roughly about $10,000 less than we were last year. We have a total of 7 full-time employees in the Excise Division. The hours are basically 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. when the office is open. There is opportunity to go out if there's a necessity for it, off hours in the evening to investigate complaints.
I'm sorry, Mr. McDonald. Is there any way you can address your mic?
Yeah.
Adjust it. Thank you.
Okay, is that better? Is that okay? Okay. All right. We collect for the collector of revenue the $889,000, which goes to that office. And at that time, that's where you actually get your liquor license from. At that time, the money goes into the general revenue, which we benefit from. The excise office itself, our projected annual revenue estimate for fiscal year 2026 was $193,700. And in fiscal year 2025, we collected $208,638. That is excise permits, which it would be the 3 a.m. permit, the caterer's permit, and the picnic licenses. Is everybody kind of familiar with how this situation works in the state of Missouri with the cities and the liquor licenses?
Please explain.
Okay.
People back home.
There's a state statute under, it's under Revised Missouri Statute, Chapter 311, I think it's 050, that allows for any city within the state of Missouri to charge 1.5 times what the state charges. So a full drink license for the state of Missouri, for instance, is $300. So any city within the state of Missouri can charge $450 for that similar license, for a full drink license. That's quite a bit less than any other state in the United States charges. In our particular circumstance with the excise permits, the Board of Aldermen has not increased the fees since December of 2009. So that's something we would like to look at. Let me see. And I've been asked by my people if I would mention their desire to get their positions reclassified to the status, not by name, but to pay-wise, to the status of a neighborhood improvement specialist. That should bring them up, I would think, to about $50-something thousand a year. Right now, they make, let's see, I had it written down. They make about, with the new pay increase, it'll be about $47,000 a year, up from $43,845. That's essentially where we're at in our budget. Are there any other questions? Are there any questions from the Board of Aldermen?
We will go through that and list the seniority. One quick question, Commissioner. Are you listed as, never mind, I see it. Alderman Tanya?
I just wanted to thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold on my questions, because,
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna hold on mine.
Alderman Browning?
Thank you. One thing we got just before you started presenting is a letter that you had sent to Director Coyle. And I'm looking at this and it says, you're asking for 36,000 over the allocated amount to purchase 2 new vehicles to replace your current 2006 Ford Taurus models.
Right, yes, sir.
2006 Ford Taurus models. So those are almost 20 years old now. Do you happen to know the mileage on those vehicles?
No, sir, I don't, but in my opinion, I've seen them. I don't think they're particularly safe vehicles for people to be out on a road in.
And how, just to give us an idea, how are those vehicles used? Are you traveling to different establishments?
Yes, sir,
Sections
it's all locally, and
So-
people take them back and forth to work, and then during the day, they go different places if they have to.
And I think I've seen those out on the road too, so I understand that's a need, and we can certainly look to that. Other questions I had for you is just trying to understand how the liquor license process typically works. So if somebody applies for a permit and they're denied, what does the process look like after that? So are they given a reason for denial, or do
Oh, yeah.
they coordinate
Yeah.
with your office?
Certainly, yes.
Okay. So they are to contact your office and go and work through that with you?
Yeah, well, yeah, they will know at the end of the hearing, at the end of the application hearing, whether it's approved or denied. Typically, it's only denied, my experience, it's the vast majority of the denials are based on the inability of the applicant to get the requisite signatures in the neighborhood, if that's the kind of license they applied for that requires the plat petition process.
And what about before the application hearing? If it's denied, like just when they're starting, do they receive a notification why they're receiving that denial, or is it just kind of like you've got to come and have the hearing first?
No, they know where they're at in the process.
Okay. I'll follow up a little more with you online about that. I'm just hearing from a couple constituents about some issues there, and I understand that you're in the midst of trying to modernize and a lot of things going on there. So would certainly like to dig into that more with you. Other than that, I'm just seeing that you're asking for a little extra money and just office supplies, or and just general.
Yeah, and the cars, yes, sir.
And that's just due to you weren't able to meet those needs the previous year?
No. Director Coyle got a car from the fire department that they turned into public safety. And they had to get it repainted and take the markings off of it. And public safety gave us that car. But we still need 2 more cars. And we asked for, I believe it was $40,000, and that was cut out of the budget.
Okay, I appreciate that. Just for the public's education, I just wanted to speak a little to how important your office is and the business of the city. A lot of restaurants and a lot of establishments have a need to get through this process so that they can serve alcohol, which is a big part of their sales and makes it possible for people to have restaurants and establishments here in the city. So we certainly want to do what we can to support you all.
Thank you.
And I don't have any more questions at this time. Just want to thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Alderman Devotee.
Commissioner McDonald, thank you for appearing in front of us this afternoon. I don't have any questions, but I appreciate your appearance and your explanation. Thank you.
Very much, Alderman.
All right, thank you, Commissioner, for being here. I have just a question. So I know last year looked like occupied positions were 6. You requested 7, and this year you requested 7 and was granted that 7. And it looks like you're trying to get an additional liquor control officer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you explain what the liquor control officers do?
Yes, they help with the processing of the liquor license in the office when the people come in. They help with that. They do inspections out in the field. Now, what I wanted to point out is as of October 16th, actually, of 2024, when Board Bill 60 took effect, the liquor control officers are no longer armed and no longer have the power of arrest. So it's strictly an administrative job.
So so people can hear you back home, you said when the liquor license ordinance that went into effect, and I'm assuming you're talking about the one we passed at the board, if you have like a restaurant, a little
Yes,
easier
sir.
process to get your liquor license, that those liquor control officers are not armed anymore. Is that
That's
what you
correct,
said?
sir.
Was that language in the ordinance that said they had to be disarmed now, or why are they not armed anymore?
Well, one of the main problems was when I started, there was no firearms policy, and there still isn't.
I'm sorry, Mr. McDonald, the public, they can barely hear you. If you could,
They need you to-
Okay, when I started in 2017, there was no firearms policy. And in my research, there had never been a firearms policy since the agency was formed in 1934. There was no specific requirement to qualify with a firearm every year. So with these situations out there, I don't think that was an unreasonable move for the Board of Aldermen to eliminate that particular situation.
So I just want to be clear, before that board bill, are you saying that you guys created a policy where they could be armed, and you're saying the board bill had language in there that says the liquor control officers cannot be armed?
I don't think it said they cannot be armed, but there was no enabling language that allowed them to be armed.
But they haven't been armed before that legislation either, correct?
Yes, but that was in the old ordinance, that they had the power of arrest and they could be armed.
And then the new ordinance,
I don't think it addressed it at all. There was no, actually, to be armed, I know at least for the state, I was with the state liquor control for a lot of years, and I was one of the 6 special agents they had, so I was armed. But you had to go through a process.
and you said was able to do arrests,
Yeah.
even if you wasn't post-certified by the state? Were they post-certified?
No, they're not. These are all issues I brought up when I first started with every director of public safety. And well, not Director Dace, because it had already been enacted by the time he got here, but Director Coyle agreed with me. And prior to that, the directors didn't want to really address it at all.
Okay. I just think, I thought in the state to do arrests, you had to be post-certified.
Well, that was my understanding, and certainly to carry a firearm as a law enforcement officer in this state, you're supposed to be post-certified.
Okay. And beforehand, those liquor license officers wasn't post-certified and was making arrests?
No, sir, I never knew of any of them to actually make an arrest,
Okay.
because I don't know where they'd take them.
Okay. I think that's about it. I also would love to have a conversation maybe offline about the process. I've ran into some constituents since we've changed the ordinance that have said, like in the downtown area, people have been granted a liquor license going off of the new metric, and they actually don't have like a kitchen, or they don't have they don't meet the criteria of actually this new process. And we can kind of talk offline on
Okay,
those matters, as well as
that'd be under the new ordinance, under the Board Bill 60 ordinance?
under the new ordinance, and just some other things that we can talk about offline to making sure that our liquor license process isn't, I've ran into some constituents where they've went through the process, and they were going through the process, and they was told one thing, and then when they turned in their paperwork, there was different requirements that they had to then do. But that's a offline conversation we can talk about. And
I understand. I think I know where you're going with this, Alderman. I've heard this.
gotcha. Okay. Well, if seeing no other questions from the committee, I think that's all we have for you for you.
All right, well,
Well, one more quick question. Your car request, would that not be a capital improvement?
yeah,
Okay,
it's in the budget, the request, and it was cut out all.
gotcha. Okay,
It's under fleet services,
and the capital improvements for, okay.
okay?
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Aldermen. Have a good day.
You have a good one. With that, the Board of Aldermen, I'll take a recess until 1 o'clock if somebody would like to make a motion for us to go on recess.
Second.
It was moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th to go to recess until 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, we'll return with the Circuit Attorney's Office. The Budget and Public Employees Committee will resume from our recess. We are starting back at 1:07. It is May 7th, and our office from the recess and the last one for today will be the Circuit Attorney's Office. So, Circuit Attorney, you may come up and present your budget if you want to introduce your team with you, and after that, you may proceed. Could you make sure the mic is on? It may be red, just a little button right there. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Just state your name for the record and your office.
Circuit Attorney for the City of St. Louis, Gabriel Gore. Chairman Aldridge, really appreciate the opportunity to come here and address the Budget Committee this morning on a couple requests that we have for addition to our budget. Let me introduce my team. With me here today, Leanne Mosby. She's our Director of Community Engagement. My first assistant, Circuit Attorney, Steve Capizzi, and also our Operations Manager who does a lot of our budget work, Becky Rentschler.
Thank you. I do have to give I want to give flowers to your whole team and not trying to point anybody out, but I just happen to have the ability to, out of people in your office, work with certain ones and most, and I just want to thank you for always being very communicating back with the board and working with the Board of Aldermen, and also want to thank Ms. Mosby. That is, I know everyone on the team is amazing, so I'm not saying she's more amazing, but just in my capacity, okay, she's more amazing. Mr. Capizzi said I could say it, but he's also a good one. But just Ms. Mosby has done a lot of great work when it comes to that community engagement with your office. So thank you for having such a stellar team, and you may proceed.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. So at the outset here, we have on the cover of our budget presentation a picture of me with my executive committee on the date that I was sworn in for a full term as circuit attorney. Put this photo here just really to highlight that the key to our ability to restore the circuit attorney's office to performing its vital role in the St. Louis criminal justice system has been the leadership from this team. It's a team of very experienced, dedicated public servants. This group represents hundreds of years of prosecutorial experience, and it's really through their work and dedication that we've been able to make a lot of progress over the 2 years that I've been in place as circuit attorney, and we hope to continue that progress as we move forward. We can go to the next slide. Our mission, I like to remind my team every day that at the end of the day, our role in the circuit attorney's office, the reason we exist is to improve the level of public safety in the St. Louis region, and that's something that we remain focused on every day as we work. Next slide. My vision for our office is that we be one of the highest performing prosecuting attorney's offices in the country. That is a vision that I believe is absolutely obtainable. We have a prosecuting attorney's office that has a very proud tradition, a tradition that I was only passingly familiar with before my appointment, but really have learned much more about as I've served as circuit attorney and see the pride that former circuit attorneys take in the office and the esteem in which the office is held in the St. Louis community and the St. Louis legal community, where really a lot of the top attorneys in St. Louis started their careers in the circuit attorney's office, and we really want to return to that standard. In addition, we have two great law schools right here in the city of St. Louis that provide us feeder schools for talent. So we've got great young attorneys out of law schools. And in addition to that, we just have the overall commitment to community service and public service here in the St. Louis community that we benefit from. Next slide. So here is really where my attention and work has been focused over the past 2 years. Obviously, a big focus has been restaffing the office. You know, when I was appointed circuit attorney's office, I told people that I inherited a troubled law office, because at the end of the day, that's what our law office. And everyone in the legal business knows that the key to any well-functioning law office is talent. It's the people. So it's talented attorneys and support staff. So restaffing the office, getting talented, experienced people in place has really been a big focus over the last 2 years. In addition to that, we've made historic investments in diversion, which have been supported by this committee. We've also made huge investments in community engagement. And when I talk about huge investments in community engagement, I have invested a tremendous amount of my time in community engagement, literally from the first days of my appointment. And we have a 2-person community engagement department, which under previous circuit attorney's office, you usually had a community engagement position that performed multiple functions. So we're really making historic investments there, and also historic investments in conviction integrity. These are all projects, initiatives that have been supported by this committee in terms of granting our budget requests, and we truly appreciate that. Next slide. Just to talk about where we've gotten as far as restaffing the trial attorney staff. When I took over on the day I was appointed, the office had 22 trial attorneys. In 2016, that number of trial attorneys was approximately 60. So clearly the office was severely understaffed, and that was the main thing we had to address. Since I've been hired, we've hired 43 attorneys. I actually just wrote another offer letter yesterday that was immediately accepted by a very experienced sex crimes prosecutor who's going to be joining our office in June. So that number should be 44 now. In addition to the 43 attorneys that we currently have working for us, I've also extended offers, and they've been accepted by 5 current law students who will be joining us in October of 25. So at that point, we anticipate in the fall that we'll have a trial staff of somewhere in the neighborhood of the mid-50s, 53 or between 53 and 55. And our current budgeted full staff is 60. So it is conceivable that we will hit that number during fiscal year 25. Right now, today, we currently have 48 assistant circuit attorneys handling criminal cases in our office. Next slide.
How many did you say? 46?
48 currently. And our budgeted number is 60. Or our requested budgeted number is 60. Let's go to the next slide. Here we have a picture of, this is an article that St. Louis Magazine ran. It was a very good piece that really just focused on the fact that the key to us regrowing the office and the future of the circuit attorney's office through hiring high-performing young attorneys, getting them trained and getting them to remain with the office and grow in the office and become the experienced prosecutor are the basis for our office. It was a nice article. Here's a picture of our new grads that joined us, the class of 24 that joined us in the fall of 24. And like I said, we plan to have another class of 7 or so new graduates join us in the fall of 2025. And it's really through bringing in this young talent, training them properly, and having them move up in the office that we're really going to build towards having one of the highest performing circuit attorney's offices in the country. Next slide. Support staff, a big part of the untold story about our office is when I got there, not only was the trial staff severely reduced, support staff was way down. We may recall that the office was having lots of problems with discovery production. It was causing a lot of problems in terms of prosecuting cases. It was very frustrating to the bench. I attribute a lot of that to the fact that you had not only understaffing with attorneys, but understaffing with the support staff that assists with the prosecution. They're really a critical part of what we do. Since I've been there, we've hired 58 support staff. We currently are fully staffed on support staff, which is a nice accomplishment. They really do increase the efficiencies of attorney and really are the secret to us being able to handle caseloads that are roughly double what the office has historically seen. We've been able to handle those caseloads because of the excellent work and support we get from our support staff. I've personally really tried to increase the skill level of the paralegals we've hired in our office because I understood, coming from private practice, the value that they can add. Next slide. As I've stated, the key to any law office is talent, retaining talent, acquiring talent, and retaining talent. How do we plan to do that? First, we have to be competitive on compensation, of course. Nobody goes into prosecution or government service because they're trying to get rich, but we have to be competitive with neighboring prosecuting attorneys' offices. Our biggest competitor for talent is probably St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, which has consistently paid more than the Circuit Attorney's Office over the years and continues to pay more to this day. Other competitors in the market for talent for us are the Attorney General's Office. The Attorney General's Office historically paid less than the Circuit Attorney's Office. That has changed over the last few years. I know that on at least 2 occasions I was trying to hire mid-level attorneys, and I was outbid by the Attorney General's Office, which is surprising. But historically, they haven't been able to be competitive on salary, but they have more funds for that now. How else do we work to retain talent, acquire and retain talent? We've got to have adequate technology that permits people to perform at a high level and be efficient. Again, fortunately, based on the support we've received from this budget committee, we've been able to make significant upgrades in technology that have really benefited our office and have permitted us to be efficient and manage the huge backlog of cases we have. So we thank you for that and appreciate your continuing support of our office as we improve our technology. And then the other big piece of it is training. You know, when you go into government service as a young attorney, you understand that you're going to be making a fraction of what your classmates and young attorneys going into private practice are going to make. But the way you justify that is you say, I'm going to go there and I'm going to get excellent training. They're going to invest in me. So it's important that we do that. And like I said, we've made historic investments there, namely by creating a position that never existed before, the position of Chief Training Officer, which is filled by former Supreme Court Justice George Draper, who works with our young attorneys and makes sure that they're learning to practice law the right way based on his many years of experience in the Circuit Attorney's Office and also on the bench. Next slide. In December of 2024, we did a round of raises for our support staff and attorneys. This is, again, part of my effort to make us be more competitive with St. Louis County, the Attorney General's office. I know that in some instances, Franklin County, St. Francis County pays mid-level attorneys more than we do. So that's something that we've been focused on. These raises were to increase our competitiveness, and also, quite frankly, they were to assist with retention, because the attorneys we've had, you've seen the numbers, we've built up to 48. The attorneys we've had who have been with us for the 2 years have been working at probably 120, 130% of capacity. So they really have been doing the work of more than just one attorney because they've had to. And so these raises also reflect getting back to competitiveness, but also demonstrating to those attorneys that we understand that they're working at more than capacity and that we are compensating them for that work. Next slide. The technology investments that we list here, again, were made possible by the support we received from this committee, supports we received from the Capital Investments Committee, and we've made really big investments in technology that have really paid off in a big way. The issue we're facing currently on technology is kind of an operations issue. Last year, this committee funded us with some additional IT support positions, and we really haven't come up with a strategy for filling those positions because it's difficult to get IT people in this market. The market for prosecutors and the market for support staff is competitive. The market for IT support is tremendously competitive, and we've got to come up with a strategy for dealing with that, because ultimately, if we're going to have a stable IT system in our office, which is independent from the city system, we're going to need strong operations. So that's something we're still working on, but we do appreciate the support we've received there in the additional IT support positions. Next slide. Again, another place where we've invested, and this committee has supported us, is rebuilding our data analyst group. This data analyst group had existed for many years in the circuit attorney's office. It is kind of a hallmark of modern prosecution that you do data-driven prosecution so that you can make informed decisions about where you put your resources. In addition, this data analyst group really helps us be more successful in prosecutions because we have a position, a crime analyst position, that can really focus on developing the social media, telephone network evidence, which is substantial. We've had cases already. We've had our crime analysts on staff for probably about 4 months or so, or maybe even less than that. And we've already had cases that went from potentially losers to cases where we were able to force guilty pleas because the evidence that he's been able to develop has been so compelling. And that's something that we're excited about and want to continue to invest in and develop. Next slide. This just talks about some of the benefits of data-driven prosecution. Our data analyst has been in place, if I had the guess, is probably about 6 months at this point. So she took a while to get up and running. I got my first monthly report from her kind of outlining her tracking of all of the statistics in our office that we were able to look at my executive committee meeting yesterday. I can tell you that's going to be a tremendous tool because up until now we've been kind of flying blind because we didn't have anyone in our office compiling the data about what was actually going on in terms of guilty pleas, in terms of trials, in terms of charging decisions. There's just really a wealth of data that I was able to review for the first time on a monthly basis, and that's going to be a very valuable tool going forward, and that's what we talk about when we talk about data-driven prosecution. Next slide. Diversion. Again, we've made historic investments in diversion. If we can go to the next slide. We have emphasized diversion from very early in my tenure. Jennifer Lorenz, our Director of Diversion, joined the office in June. She immediately conducted a full assessment of our diversion program, revamped it completely, and we relaunched in January of 2024, so we just completed our first full year. Fortunately, we've been able to track the progress of our diversion program because we got the data analysts in place who's able to track that data right from the very launch of the program, which has been very valuable. Diversion, I knew from day one was going to be important for us. I knew that it was going to be important because it merges with our community engagement and that it's a program that reflects the values of our community and demonstrates to people it's a place where we can engage with the public and say we're not all punitive. There are occasions where we're looking to be compassionate and work with the community to help people turn their lives around. In addition, diversion is important because by reducing the number of low-level nonviolent offenders that we're having to put through the full prosecution and the full run of the criminal justice system, we obviously give ourselves more resources to focus on the more serious violent crimes that really has been the focus of our work. Next slide. Here's just an example of how we've made the largest investment in diversion of the Circuit Attorney's Office. We have 3 case managers. I think typically that's been staffed with 1 or maybe 2 or none on some occasions. We've got a unit supervisor and we've got a dedicated treatment court attorney. They are doing great work and the program's having a real impact in the community, and the community is really responding very well to it. And you guys may have also heard about a program that the diversion unit just recently launched, the Tap-In Center program, something that we adopted from St. Louis County where it had been very successful, which is we set up in the St. Louis Central Branch Library on a monthly basis and give people an opportunity to come in and deal with any outstanding warrants they have without having to be concerned about being taken into custody. This program is in its early stages. We've been doing it for a few months. It's had a big impact. It's been very well received by the public, and we're excited about what this can lead to. Obviously, this addresses the issue of people having bench warrants, getting pulled over on a traffic violation and being arrested based on those bench warrants. Instead, they can come in and address them at the Tap-In Center and deal with those issues that way. So that's something that we're very excited about. Next slide. And actually, there was just a nice article run about our Tap-In Center program in the St. Louis Magazine. These are the community partners that Diversion works with. I know you guys are familiar with these organizations. They do great work, and we've worked really hard to build strong partnerships with them. Next slide. Next slide. Community engagement. As Chairman Aldridge talked about, our Director of Community Engagement, Leanne Mosby, has done a great job since she's been with us, and it's just something that I think is so critical. If we're going to be one of the highest performing prosecuting attorneys' offices in the country, I know that we can't do that without community involvement. We will never get where we need to be on public safety without full community involvement. So I've worked hard getting out there as many places as I can, engaging with the public, trying to rebuild that trust with our office. At the end of the day, I want people to look at our office and I want people to see the Circuit Attorney's Office as their Circuit Attorney's Office. I want them to know that we operate with integrity and that we care and that we are a community citizen. Next slide. This slide just shows a sample of the opportunities we've had to get out and engage with the public, and we continue to do that work on a weekly basis. Next slide. The community engagement investments we've made. We have the group headed by Leanne Mosby. In addition to that, we just recently added a project coordinator to work with her. That person's role is going to really help us build out our neighborhood ownership model and our Citizens Academy. You see here a picture of one of our paralegals, Kim Banks, getting the award for community engagement in our office because she's one of the staff members who really has stepped up and volunteered a lot of her time to assist in our community engagement efforts. But that has really come from across the office. We have a lot of people stepping up and volunteering for community engagement. So we leverage our investments in community engagement that way. In addition, we get a lot of involvement from businesses and law firms on our community engagement efforts. Next slide. So what are we working on in community engagement? The neighborhood ownership model. If Leanne hasn't reached out to you directly at this point, she's going to be reaching out to you to talk about getting this set up in each ward. In each neighborhood, we want to have a committee of citizens that we work with to support witnesses and victims and deal with crime issues that they have going on in their neighborhood directly with our office. And we would be ideally working also with the police department to deal with those issues on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. So this is a program that we're really working to reestablish, and the addition of the program coordinator, which again is an investment this committee supported, is going to really enable us to accelerate that. Next slide. In addition, we're adding a Citizens Academy program. That's going to be a program where leaders in the community have the opportunity to come into our office. It's going to be a 6-week program, a couple hours on one night a week. Come in and really have an opportunity to learn about the work of our office and really be informed about what we do. And our vision is that they will then take that knowledge back out into the community and expand the knowledge and understanding of our office in the community. I'll tell you right now, all of you are invited to participate in our Citizens Academy, which we hope to have the first class going this fall. Next slide. Conviction integrity. Next slide. Again, on conviction integrity. There's never been a conviction integrity attorney position in the Circuit Attorney's Office until that was added to our budget last year. So we filled that position, have a great young attorney filling that role. Already our conviction integrity unit has reviewed a bunch of backlog of applications from prisoners on different issues with their cases. We reviewed those and responded to those applications. In addition, we've developed partnerships with private law firms where we're really leveraging that one position, our conviction integrity position, to getting whole law departments to work with us in terms of investigating cases for possible instances of actual innocence. The next slide is going to talk about a good example of that I'm sure you're all familiar with, the Christopher Dunn case. This is a case where Mr. Dunn was exonerated last year based on the work of our office in conjunction with the private law firm of Thompson Coburn. In that case, we were able to successfully move to vacate Mr. Dunn's conviction with Judge Singheiser and get him released from prison. That required a tremendous amount of work from the Thompson Coburn law firm led by former Court of Appeals Judge Booker Shaw, a situation where we've really were the beneficiaries of a tremendous amount of donated legal work from Thompson Coburn, surely in the excess of $1 million of legal work that they did on a pro bono basis here, and we were able to obtain justice for Mr. Dunn. That fight continues. That case is being appealed by the Attorney General, and the Thompson Coburn firm continues to work with us to get justice for Mr. Dunn. So that's just an example of how investing in a conviction integrity position, actually that's being leveraged many times by having that attorney work and coordinate the work of our conviction integrity unit with private law firms. And that's something that we're going to continue. Currently, we are also working with, we've got Hush Eppenberger is currently working with us on investigation where they're investing considerable resources in assisting our office. Next slide. Challenges ahead. It's the same thing that we've been dealing with from day one, which is we remain understaffed. We're making a lot of progress there, but we're currently still understaffed. And we are still dealing with caseloads because of a backlog of cases that are roughly double what they traditionally are in the circuit attorney. If you ask me, what am I concerned about? I'm concerned about managing attorney burnout as we continue to restaff. I think, the attorneys who have been with our office for the last 2 years, like I said, have been facing tremendous demands, and that has just continued, and probably won't get real relief from that for another year or so as we continue to fully restaff the office. The other thing I'm concerned about is my supervisors. My unit supervisors are carrying, how we're able to manage these caseloads double what they traditionally are, is my unit supervisors are carrying much larger caseloads than unit supervisors typically carry. So not only does this place additional burden on them, but it undermines our ability to train young attorneys because they're having to focus so much on their own cases. So those are the things that, that's a big challenge that we have going forward. And then the other challenge we have going forward is there's going to continue to be competition for our attorneys and paralegals from, quite frankly, other prosecuting attorneys' offices, but also the private sector. We've lost 2 paralegals this past year who were outstanding, and what they were increasing the efficiencies of our attorneys tremendously. But we lost them, and they were recruited away from us by private law firm. Next slide. Our unfunded requests. We've got 2 requests, really, and that is, I think of it as 2 requests. On the attorney side, we've had 2 Attorney 1 positions that are currently unfunded for a total of $173,000. Now, these Attorney 1 positions, that picture I showed you in St. Louis Magazine where we had the young attorneys who are in our office, they're Attorney 1s. What they do is they come into the office, and their initial mechanism for training them is having them handle the bond docket. The bond docket is unique to the 22nd Judicial Circuit. It's something that was put in place by an order from a federal judge who said that, in order to reduce the instances in which people were being improperly detained in the 22nd Judicial Circuit, we're going to add some additional bond reviews into the process. So you have, at this point, you have a 24-hour bond review. You have a 48-hour bond review. You have a 7-day bond review. And in some instances, more bond reviews than that. Well, that requires that we have prosecutors there to staff that. That is what these attorneys do. It takes 8 attorneys to run what we refer to it as the misdemeanor unit, but it really is the unit that monitors these bond dockets and also our preliminary hearings and also runs our grand jury. It takes 8 attorneys to do that, and those are entry-level positions. So if we don't have these 2 positions, we're not going to be able to fully staff that unit, and that's going to, basically have an impact on the quality of the bond reviews that occur and our ability to get those done in a timely manner. In addition, that will really stun our growth because, as I pointed out, these young attorneys entering in these entry-level positions is the manner through which we intend to grow. there's not enough experienced prosecutors available out there. We don't have the money to go out there and compete to hire away a experienced prosecutor with 5 or 6 years. So we've got to grow our own attorneys, and this is the mechanism through which we do it. So when you cut us to attorney ones, basically you're inhibiting our ability to continue to grow the office through bringing in young attorneys who want to do community service and are dedicated to this work and getting them trained the right way. So it's really, this is critical to our office. The other requests we have, and I'll just kind of merge them, the paralegal and administrative assistant positions, those are what I'm talking about in terms of those positions pay for themselves in terms of their ability to make attorneys more efficient and allow us to prosecute a huge number of cases with less attorneys. That's why we've been able to be efficient, because of the focus on really improving the quality of our support staff, and also making sure that we keep that attorney to support staff ratio in such a place that we're continuing to be effective. So by investing in support staff, you really are saving attorney positions. I mean, in one way we could do it is we could say, well, we're going to have less support staff, but we're going to hire 65 attorneys and have them do more of their own support work. That would be inefficient. These legal support positions really are key to being efficient and ultimately saves the city of St. Louis money. Next slide. And here we just list some of the benefits that we believe the work of our office has for the St. Louis region. I can just tell you anecdotally, I have had many, many instances over the last 2 years where I've been approached by business owners who have told me that they were in the process of making the decision to leave the city of St. Louis because they had lost faith in the St. Louis criminal justice system, and that the work of our office has restored their faith, and for that reason they remain in the city. I've also heard that from a number of residents who've told me that they were prepared to move from the city if they did not have a restored faith in the criminal justice system here. Next slide. And that's it. I will raise one other point, and we raised this in our letter to Chairman Aldridge. There was a citywide raise of 3% across the board. I got a call from the budget office. At the time, Nancy Cross called me up and said, hey, you guys are going to be included in this. There was a board bill passed. We were included in it. When we submitted our budget, we had a conversation with the budget office about whether or not we should include the 3% or not, because we submitted our budget in February, but the raise did not become effective until March. They said, don't include it, but your budget will include the 3%. That 3% wasn't included. I'm assuming that's a mere oversight that would be easy to fix, but that's also another request we have.
Thank you, Circuit Attorney. To committee members, I will send that letter out that Circuit Attorney Gore talked about that sent to me so everyone can have it. And we'll eventually talk with Mr. Jim about that 3% to make sure that maybe it's just an oversight thing. One quick thing before I turn it over to Alderwoman Saunier. I know this committee last year, myself and your department worked to, I think, add 3 positions, and you briefly talked about it, but I want to make sure I didn't miss. Out of those 3, was it just one so far that hasn't been filled? Was it the data?
So out of the data analyst positions we added, there's only one position in that group that hasn't been filled. We've added a data analyst who's really helping us understand what's happening with prosecutions in our office in terms of compiling that data. And we've also added a crime analyst. What we haven't added is the position overseeing that group. And to be frank with you, there are probably attorneys on my trial staff who would be qualified to do that, but I can't pull them from trial staff to do that work because right now we're still managing too big a caseload. But that's a position that ultimately is typically filled by a tech-savvy circuit attorney. Gotcha. And we just can't afford to pull that person at this point.
So I think out of, if I'm hearing you correct, out of the three, and I believe it was three that we added, out of the three, two have been filled and just working on the data one to talk
The
about.
data analyst group. And in the IT group, where we added, I think, a couple of positions, we're still, quite frankly, working with worldwide technology, trying to figure out what's going to be the best strategy moving forward in improving our IT operations. And there's one thing we know. Right now, we have 3 people in our IT department. We know that that's way understaffed. I had a volunteer consultant come in from a private firm, and they looked at our IT department and they said, well, if I was staffing your IT department, you'd have eight IT people. We're currently budgeted for 5, so we're really trying to figure out how we're going to manage that, and that's just something that's still in the works. But last year you did give us the 8 Attorney 1 positions, and we filled those, and that unit is able to function, manage the caseload, manage the bond docket, and in addition to that, they're second chairing serious felony cases. They're getting that training, and those are the attorneys that come fall, when we get our next group of young attorneys in, they're going to move up and be handling felonies, and some of them within the next year are going to be moving up and handling violent crimes and sex crimes. So that's really kind of the growth of the office in action.
Thank you, Circuit Attorney. First in line of seniority, Alderwoman Tanya.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us today. I found your presentation to be very informative and enlightening, and I'm happy that I was definitely curious about those positions that were added, so I'm glad to see that you were able to take advantage of those. I don't really have many questions, except could you talk a little bit more about your neighborhood ownership model?
Yeah, so it is something that existed before in the Circuit Attorney's Office, and we're rebuilding it. What we're going to be doing is really working through the aldermen, alderwoman to make contacts with neighborhood organizations. What we will be looking for is a committee within the neighborhood organizations that is really just dedicated to working with us identifying active cases from their neighborhood, from their ward, and working with us, keeping them informed about what's going on with those cases, to the extent that there's witnesses and victims who are their neighbors, who they can support through the process. They will be able to do that work, and we think it'll ultimately strengthen our prosecutions and strengthen public safety in those neighborhoods. So it's really just building more direct collaboration between our office and the neighborhoods. We plan to have a dedicated prosecutor to each of those neighborhood organizations, and so we're really excited about the impact that can have, as well as we'll try to bring in police collaboration as well.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think a lot of the neighborhood organizations that are in the ward I represent already have like public safety committees, so it'll probably be very easy to just make that committee be the one that would translate over them, and most of them do have either a committee or a representative just for public safety matters, so I think that would be great. My other question for you is I just wanted to talk a little bit about, in your presentation you mentioned that managing the felony caseloads and that's doubled, so I was curious about that they're double of what they've been historically, I think. So just wanted to get a little bit more context about why you felt that double had happened, and if you felt like the proposed budget that's in front of us, is that adequate? Do you have the resources you need to help you deal with that increased workload?
So why we're facing roughly double the caseload is, I think, simply because we went through a period of 7 or 8 years where cases just weren't being, the pace of prosecution just was slow. Like just today I was in a meeting, and I saw a 2020 case. And it's like, we're seeing less and less of that, but it still happens occasionally. We're like coming across cases that are like, 2021, 2022. So since I've been in place, the average time from filing of a case to disposition has decreased considerably. I'm not remember what the exact statistic is, but I think we're somewhere around like 90 days in terms of average time to dispose of a case. For the years preceding my appointment, it was much less than that. So you had cases lingering around for a year, 2 years, and that just causes the backlog to build. So that's why I think we're facing the increased caseload for our attorneys. Like for instance, so I looked at it yesterday, our violent crime attorneys are carrying 78 cases per. That's typically a number. If you talk to most urban prosecutors, they're going to tell you you don't want a violent crime attorney with more than 40 or 45 cases. My homicide attorneys, we looked at it yesterday, I think they're carrying like an average of 54 cases. That's not sustainable. These are not sustainable levels. Typically, you want to see a homicide attorney. Those are obviously the most complex cases to prosecute, most time intensive. You want to see that around 25, maybe 30. And then, like I said, I have supervisors who have supervisory responsibilities, but they're carrying caseloads basically like they're a line attorney. So that's where the caseloads are really challenging. Our budget, as we requested it, is what we think is required to manage that. That doesn't address the problem that we've got to get the people. So that's what our job, and we're working on that. So supporting us in terms of having competitive salaries and supporting the number we've asked for, we think that we're going to be able to operate. I think managing our way through this period of backlog without increasing our trial attorney level over what it was in 2016 is demonstrating that we're being very lean. So I do think we can do that. But the competitiveness on salary is important to that, because I'll give you a good example. I just told you I hired a very experienced sex crimes prosecutor just this week. She looked at the progress in our office. She had been in the office previously. She looked at the progress in our office. She had left the office because she felt like it was not an environment she could work in anymore. She's looked at the progress in our office, and she's like, I love the work I was doing. I love the public service I was delivering. I want to get back to that. And I now believe that the office is at a place where I can do that work effectively. And she goes, but I can't take a pay cut. And I'll tell you, if we hadn't, over the last couple of years, done the work to make our salaries more competitive, she wouldn't be coming. Because of that, because we were more competitive on salary, I was able to extend her an offer that she could accept.
Understood. And so you do feel like, because I know you do you had a slide in your presentation I'm going through now to find where you had specifically unfunded requests that weren't met. Are there, I guess, considering the additional workload and just all the things you're working on doing, these were all unfunded. Do you have any priorities of, like, if you had to, would it be the attorney ones? Would it be the paralegals? If for the unfunded requests that you feel like you need to really be in good position to handle the workload?
So we really need it all, because, for instance, if you tell me you're not going to give me the paralegals and administrative support, then I'll tell you we need 9 attorney ones, because you're going to be asking those attorneys to do that work that otherwise a paralegal would be doing. So like I said, there's a different strategy you can take, and law firms take different strategies. You can be a law firm that says, I'm going to staff up paralegals and really have excellent paralegals to support attorneys and thereby leverage my attorneys to be able to do more work. That's one approach. The other approach you could say is, you know what, I'm not going to have any support staff, but I'm going to hire enough attorneys that they can maybe just do all the work using technology and do it all themselves. there's different approaches. I think for our office, investing in support staff is the way to go. But so I'm going to hire, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to hire the young attorneys, because without that, our office will cease to grow and we will cease to move forward. And we won't be building a circuit attorney's office to support the city of St. Louis into the future. So I'm going to invest in those positions, even if I have to pull from other places. And to me, you know, it makes sense to invest in the paralegals and administrative positions, because they make your attorneys more efficient, and it saves you. I mean, obviously attorneys make more than support staff, so it just gives you the ability to really leverage your attorneys and get the most work out of them.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I forgot. I also wanted to give my flowers to Ms. Mosby. I do think you do an excellent job with community engagement. I love seeing you. I see you all the time. I know I'm in the right place. You're there. So definitely had to give my flowers to that and put on the record that I have a town hall coming. I hope that you can make it too, but I'll connect with Ms. Larby about that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All righty, Alderman Browning.
Thank you. I can confirm that Mr. Gore is a huge hit at town halls. So him and his staff, we really appreciate it done in this office. I think you said it well. The restored faith in the criminal justice system is something that's so important to people who are choosing to live in this city and work in this city. And I've often found that maybe people forget where the office was because of how good of a job you've done in turning it around. And so it's good to remember where we came from, but it's also really good to be appreciative of where we're now because of the leadership that we have in this office. I only had one question. That was looks like there's a significant increase in your computer supplies. I think you were speaking to that a little bit about upgrading their technology. But just curious, so it's about 234,000, which is a good chunk of change. But what do you experience in the office right now that requires that kind of upgrade of technology?
You know, in terms of the specifics of that, I'm going to let our operations manager, Becky Rentschler, address that. I can tell you one thing we're doing is there weren't the computers there to support the staff we were hiring. So every time we hire somebody, we basically have to get them a laptop.
Ms. Becky, if you could just state your first and last name. And
my name is Rebecca Rentschler. I'm the operations manager for the Circuit Attorney's Office, and Gabe is taller than me. Let me adjust the mic. So Alderman Browning, that gap that you see there, in 312007, I believe is the cost center that you're looking at, and that's one of our our fund that's funded by the graduated business license, and so our allocation. So historically, we've only funded employees out of that account. But this year, our allocation was a lot larger than we expected. And so with all the investment that we've been doing in technology and needing to replace computers, and we're doing a lot of audiovisual upgrades just to make it kind of like a real law office, that's where we decided to put the gap in the allocation between our employee costs and our allocation into that fund, into that account for this year through in 2007.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Just, flagged it, and that explanation covers it. I completely understand the need to be able to recruit, young talent. I saw an ad recently from the Madison County Circuit Attorney's Office where they were saying, we're not going to bench you, we're going to put you in front of the bench. And I thought that was clever, but I was like, that's your competition. That's Illinois and this is Missouri, but we realize that people are looking for that experience, and that this is a place where young attorneys can get that experience and really get that time in front of a judge, which is fantastic, and then build a career from there. So we want to do what we can to enable you to hire those attorneys and provide them with the necessary equipment and staff as well. So thank you again, really appreciate it. And to everyone else of my colleagues, I just encourage you, if you need the circuit attorney's office at your town hall or your engagement event, reach out to them. They're fantastic, and people absolutely love to hear from them. Public safety is often one of the top concerns we hear as aldermen, and It cannot be understated how important this office is to keeping our streets.
Thank you very much.
Alderman Devotee.
Mr. Gore, it's good to see you again, and Alderman Browning, that's also good to hear, because I think at the waning days of the last administration, we invited your predecessor to the Hill, and it was an abysmal failure. And all we had was a lot of folks that were very peeved and upset. So that's very, very good to hear about the change in administration. I would just say, too, as someone who spends a fair amount of time in both courthouses in downtown St. Louis, that there is absolutely no doubt about the depth and the quality of the work that you and your staff have put into getting this office back where it needs to be. So you should absolutely be congratulated on that. Having said that, both buildings still remain a fairly quiet place. So when we talk about getting in front of the bench, can you tell us how successful you believe the office has been, say, in the last year, 2024, in resolving cases by trial, whether it be a jury trial or a bench trial? Because again, the buildings seem relatively quiet, at least compared to when you and I were cutting our teeth many years ago.
So I have not looked deeply into our trial numbers. I mean, I can tell you from the inside, it does not seem quiet. I've been there 2 years. My head of sex crimes, Jeremy Crowley, has probably tried 15 cases, first chaired in those 2 years. He's probably second chaired another 10. My homicide attorneys are in trial regularly. Violent crimes, same thing. Last week, we had 2 trials. Got a murder 1 conviction on one trial, and the other trial, it was multiple, a defendant accused of multiple rapes. We got a conviction, and the jury recommended a sentence of 30 years. I just was in a meeting with attorneys who were preparing for trial next week. So next week, I think we're going to have 2 or 3. It does ebb and flow in terms of the number of trials we have. But say, for instance, I don't know if you're familiar with Gordon Ankney, who's one of the legendary prosecutors in the 22nd Judicial Circuit. Gordon Ankney came back and is in a special with our office. I'm going to say that Gordon himself has tried probably 8 or 9 trials in the last year and a half, because he didn't even join us until here for 6 months. So we are busy in court trying cases. I do think that people respect the skills of the attorneys in our office, and I do think defendants are pleading more. We hear it from defendants that they're being, that the word on the street is, this isn't the old days where when you show up on the day of trial, the case is missed, and you're going to get a bond. That these attorneys are ready and they're ready to try the case. So I do think that's encouraging more pleas, which is good news for criminal justice, because I tell people, if you want every case to go to trial, that's great. But what you're going to have is I'm going to need, I'd be here asking you for 180 prosecutors. And I'd be here telling you, somebody be down the state telling them that we're going to need 3 more courthouses and that we're going to need 60 more judges. So working cases out and resolving them on pleas is an important part of the criminal justice system, and we could not function without doing that. So I'm encouraged by the fact that criminal defendants recognize that that they've got their hands full when they go to trial against us and are taking pleas.
Yeah, and from my time on the Judicial Commission, I got to know Judge Woodiest and Commissioner Melton fairly well. If you could educate members of the public who are watching this, even members of the board, about the success of the treatment courts and how that is one way that your office is thinking outside of the traditional to quickly and efficiently bring matters to a head without incarcerating folks.
Yeah, so treatment court, I have to tell you, and you probably noticed from talking to Judge Woody, there's a tremendous amount of pride in treatment court in the 22nd Judicial Circuit among the judges, and part of the reason for that is St. Louis was really one of the very early innovators in that, and it's something that our bench takes a lot of pride in. The treatment program, when I got there, was basically, it was gone. The treatment court no longer existed. And I went around and I talked with each of the judges, and without exception, all of them were saying, are we going to get treatment court back in place? Because we saw the impact that it had. We know that we were doing good work with that, and we want to get back to doing that work. So treatment court is back running. It's a great program. When I can, make it to the treatment court graduations, which I would invite any of you to do, because it really is an inspiring thing when you see people who have done the hard work to turn their lives around and participated in the program and are successful, which is not easy. It's a really inspiring thing. So that's been very effective. I spoke at a treatment court graduation, and it's just an event when you see the families there, and you see the people who've put in the hard work, and it is a very positive program, and we are happy to be part of it. And our diversion unit is very active in that.
That's wonderful to hear. Very, very good to hear. Finally, I want to talk to you about some of the numbers that you discussed. You mentioned that one of the focuses is not just on hiring, but retention. And if my math is right, despite hires and you building the office with those new folks that you talked about, you've also lost 17 lawyers in the last nearly 2 years. And again, I might be doing bad math. Is there something from a budgetary perspective that we need to be considering to make sure that you're not losing that young talent that you have hooked and gotten into your office?
I think supporting the increases we did in December of 24 is a big help. I will tell you that even with those increases, and even with the 3% increase on the citywide, which I kind of consider a cost of living increase, we still trail St. Louis County. And then you have smaller prosecutor offices like Franklin County, St. Francis County, which even though they're small, when it comes to competing for mid-level attorneys who have that experience and are ready to first chair serious cases, they can actually outbid us for those attorneys because I have to keep parity within people of similar ranks, and they can say, look, all we need is one great violent crime prosecutor, so we're going to offer this person $10,000 more than what you're offering and see if we can't lure them away. And we do run into that with Madison County is another example. They're smaller, but they can make strategic investments like, you got a homicide prosecutor who's been doing it for 10 years. You've invested in that person. You've trained them up. If I can come and offer them $15,000 more and steal them away, or offer them a supervisor's position and steal them away, they'll do that. So just being competitive on salary is going to be, and like I said, nobody's looking to get rich. We just need to be competitive. People understand that when they make the decision to do this work, they're making a commitment to public service, and that they're not going to be making the salaries of a private attorney. But we need to be competitive with surrounding offices.
Understood. I think we get that you're not trying to compete with Thompson Coburn or Brian Cave or Armstrong Teasdale. But can you give us even a ballpark notion? If we talk about competition with St. Louis County, with Ms. Price Smith out in Clayton and her staff, a comparable position from one office to the other, what are we talking about in terms of difference?
So since I've been in the office, said it was attorney one positions, we were able to get that position up to, when I got in the office, I can't remember what the number was, but we weren't competitive on attorney one positions. We weren't. And they weren't hiring a lot of attorney ones. We've gotten that position up to the entry level position this year. The class coming in, I think, is going to start at $68,000. So for instance, Jean Peters Baker, who I talked with before she ended her term in Jackson County, she told me that she was paying her incoming attorney $70,000. St. Louis County, I think, is probably more like around 79. You know, when you compare us to Jackson County, you know, they're paying 70, we're paying 68, and you think, well, okay, that's pretty close. Well, if you're familiar with the Missouri legal market, we know that law firms, for instance, on entry-level positions, firms in St. Louis pay about $25,000 more than the starting position because there's a perception of a cost of living difference. So, you know, we are more competitive, but we are not at parity with the offices we compete with.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you all. Really appreciate. Chairman Aldridge.
Yes. Just a few questions. During the conversation you was having with Alderman Devotie, did I hear you correct that, I guess, your office made raises already in December? And so just because I'm clear, the 3% raise is something I think that all employees are getting citywide. And if I'm hearing you clear, your department made raises in December outside of the 3% raise, and also is wanting the 3% raise, or because one of the requests is a 3% raise that that had happened with all city employees that had not that you all didn't receive. Is it, maybe I'm trying to be clear, was there some, I guess, maybe confusion with the budget division since you guys made a raise? Did they go off of the individual raises you made? And was that the raises that you made in December, was that for all employees or was that for select employees?
So, when I came in as circuit attorney, one of my goals right away was to increase the competitiveness of our compensation versus St. Louis County and other neighboring prosecuting attorney's office. There had been that exodus of attorneys from the circuit attorney's office. A lot of it had gone the way of St. Louis County. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but it was a one-way street from the circuit attorney's office to St. Louis County prosecuting attorney. So a lot of good attorneys went and joined St. Louis County during that time period. So I knew right away I needed to be competitive on salary. Last December, we did so December of 23. 23, going back to 23. My first, after when I was appointed, May 23, December of 23, we did raises in December to be more competitive, okay, on salary, because we weren't there. We wouldn't have the attorneys we have now if we hadn't done those raises. So I did. We did raises. We did 2.5% for attorneys who we felt were meeting expectations, and we did 5% for the attorneys we felt were going above and beyond. I forget the total dollar figure on that, I don't remember what the total dollar figure. I think for some reason the number 283,000 is sticking in my mind. So we come to this December, we're still nowhere near competitive. That 5%, after basically 7 years of no growth in salaries, we were badly lagging St. Louis County. And there was a, stream of attorneys leaving the circuit attorney's office going to St. Louis. That's why we had 22 attorneys when I got there. So December 24, this past December, we did another 5% for high-performing attorneys who've been working way over capacity, carrying those caseloads I talked about, carrying caseloads that are 30% higher than is typical in the circuit attorney's office. We did 5% for high-performing attorneys, 2.5% for attorneys we felt were meeting expectations. And we also did that for these raises we also did for support staff, which I've explained is critical to us being able to be efficient as attorneys. So we did those raises. That was to be competitive, okay? We were lagging, I hadn't talked about the city councilor's office. Those raises, I would say this last round of raises may have roughly brought us in parity with the city councilor's office. So we weren't even competitive with the city councilor's office. Forget about St. Louis County. So that's what those raises accomplished. Now, the city said, we're doing 3% across the board for city employees. So yeah, we were told that we were going to be included in that, which I understand was 3% across the board, which I viewed as a cost of living type raise, which I do believe city employees were due. If you look at where inflation's gone versus cost of living increases in the city, it was something that was overdue. And so we were included in that. And I know we were included because the board bill was passed, including us, and they were implemented. Our people are getting that 3% today. It's just not included in the budget. But those 3% raises across the board were implemented. And when we had our conversations with the budget committee, what they told us was submit your budget, not including the 3%. This is February 14th, and it's not going to become effective until March, but we will know to automatically include that 3% when we calculate your budget. So that's how it happened.
Okay, and I know, and I definitely understand that you want to make sure your office is competitive to surrounding areas, and that makes a little bit more sense. I thought maybe I wasn't aware. I think when the previous administration did the 3% for all city employees, they did that, like you say, to try to make sure that we raise those wages to try to keep people, no matter if you're in the circuit attorney's office or if you're in the refuse department or if you're whatever department, because we just don't pay them enough. And I know, some departments may not have the ability of what it sounds like for your office for the last 2 years. And I understand why you did it, to be competitive, but for the last 2 years, do 5% or 2.5%. They were relying on the 3% raise.
And the one thing I will say about the raises in office is, number one, we were able to fund those raises out of our existing budget because we were still working back to being fully staffed, right? So what that meant was that the people there were doing more work than just one position. Mm-hmm. It's compensation for us to be competitive, but it's also acknowledgement of the fact that we're asking them to do more work for the same pay. So it's also a matter of basic fairness. And the same thing this year. With those caseloads, people are basically doing more work than they were being paid for.
I understand that, and I think that for your department, totally understand and appreciate you trying to elevate to keep people at a competitive salary and making sure they're doing just kind of their role. I think that is, as a budget committee and as alders, we've been talking about that from this year to last, of even other departments, how a lot of staff members are, because of the lack of staffing, are doing multiple jobs. Like I say, our refuse workers that work in or picking up trash and, doing 2 or 3 jobs because we just can't hire because of the pay. There's a pay study coming out. Hopefully we figure out how to keep that competitive. It sounds like, you're on to something within your department, which maybe can be a blueprint for other departments. But when you was having a conversation with Mr. Devotie, me personally, I wasn't aware of the outside raises that you had made within your department outside of the 3%. And like I say, your explanation makes clear sense. And I know every other department would love that same thing, but you've been able to try to figure that out to some extent. And we'll see how maybe that, talk with the budget division to see how that 3% can work out. But wasn't aware of that in the last 2 years. You had already been doing 2.5 to 5% raises outside of the 3%. When you was talking to Mr. Devotie, that was just a light bulb went off, like, outside of asking for the additional 3%. And then one last question, asking most departments, like I say, last year, we were able to, from the budget committee, from the amendment that I carried, we're able to provide a few more positions to the circuit attorney's office. And I think those positions were critical. And it sounds like you guys are putting those to good use. If I'm looking, though, at the FY25 budget of positions that were occupied, it looks like roughly around 126 were occupied. And we only get a snapshot in our booklet, so sometimes maybe the numbers are a little off. But there was 126 occupied, and you asked for 156. This year, you're asking for 157 and was granted 155. Are you guys roughly still around that 126 field positions throughout the circuit attorney's office? And
so my quick math on that is I know that as of today, all of our support staff positions are filled.
Are there any vacancies in your office?
There are no vacancies in our office for support staff positions. Now, on attorneys, we're currently at 48, and we're asking for a budget of 60. Out of those remaining 12 positions, 5 of them, 6 of them are already filled, because I've got 5 new hires who are graduating law school, who are going to pass the bar in September and start with us in October. So those 5 are filled, they're just not to our office yet. And I've got the sex crimes prosecutor that I just hired this week, who's going to join us in June. Okay. So that would put us, like I said, I think we had it on the slide, that would put us at like 54 in the fall if we don't have any attrition. So we're approaching that fully budgeted number and hope to get there in fiscal 25 and really need to get there in fiscal 20. Okay,
well, what I'm looking at is fiscal 25. You're asking for fiscal 26. I know.
Yeah. I guess, I meant fiscal 26. And I will say, I say all the positions in our office are filled. I talked about those additional IT positions we were allocated and the additional data analyst positions we are. Those are 4 that are unfilled.
Okay.
And on the IT positions, that's a place where I think we're still not competitive on salary. Well, I know we're not competitive on salary, and we're having trouble filling those positions. And we're trying to come up with a strategy that would work. We might have to go with a strategy of having a outside manager work with us to provide us the support we need, because we're an independent IT system. We're not integrated with the broader city IT system, so it's very challenging for us. I think for operations reasons, it's very important that we stay independent, but it does present some unique challenges for us.
Okay, and like I say, sometimes our budget book is a snapshot, so I'm just going off of, like I say, FY25 budget positions, which usually typically are what you all have, you asked for the previous year, which was 156. And then in that same chart, FY25 occupied positions is 120, asked for 156.5, which is probably a half, but occupied 126. And that's not, so that's general fund, that is the delinquent tax, that's the child support unit, that's all of the positions. So it's that they add up in total. So, and the reason I ask that, because I do think, you know, this is an important department. That's why, you know, I worked with you all to move some positions in that, because I think you have turned this office around, as many as my colleagues have said. But moving forward, knowing that you're going to be asking for, I think those attorney twos or attorney ones are definitely important. And, you know, here from the budget committee, we can try to do as much and may not get everything. And I think that's why Alderwoman Saunier asked what is more priority. But if we are to move positions, wanted to just have, I think, that guarantee that can't look to the future, but maybe these positions will get filled. And just going off of the previous year, there was a roughly, I'm also not good at math, but I think it's like 29.5 positions that wasn't filled throughout the whole budget.
I'm gonna let Ms. Rentschler address it, because I'm not looking at the budget. I'm looking at my head at what I know. If somebody says, do you have anything available at the circuit attorney's office right now today? I would say, are you a experienced violent crime or sex crimes prosecutor? If you're not, no, we don't have anything available. Are you an IT professional, or are you somebody who can run our data analyst group? Those are, I know that we only have 12 attorney positions, 11 attorney positions open, 2 IT positions, and 1 data analyst position. That's what we have open. We don't have anything else. So I'm not sure what the numbers reflect. I'll let Ms. Rentschler address that.
Well, so, you know, the snapshot is taken in January, right? So that's where that 126 occupied positions for fiscal year 25 comes from. We have done a number of hires since then.
Okay.
Our total number of full-time FTEs as of today is 133. So we have filled some of those positions. One thing that Mr. Gore did not point out is we have in 1121, our public safety tax, there's a couple of victim witness specialist positions that are currently unoccupied that will be filled shortly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Rebuilding out the victim services department.
Okay. And from that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know when we get the budget, like I said, it's a snapshot of a certain time. So sometimes it's a little off, but to know that it's more than 126 and some are getting hired on in the next, hopefully, few weeks or so is positive news.
Yes, exactly. And if you look at, 1,000, so our general fund, like that, really the only open positions in our general fund are the attorneys, which Mr. Gore had spoken to.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's just one thing from the budget committee. We always, I think what we've seen is there's departments ask for a certain amount and then they don't, fill them, which goes back into the general revenue, which I think the committee's also asking, then do we turn those vacancies into increases? So, what is the snapshot for the last 3 years? If we never fill those positions, can we eliminate those positions and make sure that maybe we're paying more to employees to keep them here in the city of St. Louis? But I think.
Yeah, and I think we'll have a much better picture of that for our department starting in fiscal year 27, once we have our data for the end of fiscal year 25 and 26. When we put these retention policies in place and the compensation increases.
Gotcha. Okay. And then just last comment, and then I'll wrap up because this committee's been going hard today. I appreciate all my colleagues. I do want to thank the Circuit Attorney's Office for the partnership that we had last year with the Budget Committee, which I think kind of speaks to how, even though at the Board of Aldermen, we get the budget at a very late period in time, we do the most kind of deep dive into departments and really have those conversations. And again, Paul Payne and the department does amazing job making sure that the budget is balanced. But I think it shows we was able to make some changes last year, which shows that the Board of Aldermen Budget Committee, with the limited power that we do have, is still very powerful, and encourage all my colleagues to have as many amendments as possible, and we'll see where we kind of go from there. But I do appreciate the Circuit Attorney Office for coming today.
And thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to present. We really appreciate the support that this committee has provided to our office. It's really without the support of this committee and the budget, support of our budget, we wouldn't be where we are now. And our request on our current budget basically is what we view as being necessary to continue moving the office in the direction we're going and not take a step back. So would appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. With that, we will move on to acknowledgement of any resolutions for review. We do not have any. Committee discussion was the items that we discussed today. Any written testimony, Madam Clerk?
We have none.
Any announcements from any committee members? Seeing none from any committee members, just want to remind everybody we are back at it for our last day of the week. I am extremely grateful for everyone's just time and commitment for being on this committee. I know it's going to be a lot in this month, but I do appreciate it. Tomorrow we'll start back up at 9:30, where we'll hear from the fire department. At 11, we will hear from the Board of Aldermen's budget, which is our budget. And then we'll take another break, and then we will hear from the police department as well. Excused members, Madam Clerk, please make note that the Alderwoman from the 12th will not be excused for a third day in a row. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderman from the 7th to adjourn. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.